Chris, we'll get to John Cena and all that stuff, but let's actually talk about this title change at the end of Raw tonight. Io Sky pinning Rhea Ripley. I mean, I haven't had a chance to really process this and think too much about it, so I'm going to do it live on the air with you. Raw just ended a minute ago. Yeah, Rhea Ripley getting frustrated with Bianca Belair, who was sitting at ringside, observing a match that she had, in traditional ways, every right to be there. She's watching, scouting in person, and a little hype, for the event, watching to see who she'd be facing at WrestleMania with this, pre-scheduled title defense that would determine that. And Ripley kind of, I don't know, overreacts, loses her. I mean, I don't have any sympathy for Ripley's character in this case. She yells at Bianca because Bianca was cheering on Io when Io beat a count out. She didn't interfere. Rhea just got like, what? You don't want to face me? You're scared of me? You want to face her? And it felt kind of petulant and short-tempered, and it was enough to throw her off her game, and Io Sky got the win. A good match as you'd expect with these two. Yeah. And then Sky, very sympathetic and emotionally celebrating, holding up the title belt, pyro blasting off. And meanwhile, Rhea Ripley's throwing this kind of this tantrum at ringside. It was her own undoing, and Cole even pointed that out. So I don't know what to make of this. No, let's keep in mind, we got 47 days till WrestleMania. We got a month and a half to tell lots of stories here. That isn't, so we're not necessarily going to get Bianca Belair challenging Io Sky at WrestleMania. I love the peripheral shove of the cat out of the screen. No, it's great. It's a tradition here. Frank Pettiani is enjoying it. I've got a cat laying right next to my keyboard here, and
take your word for it.
She is too cute to move, but her tail could knock me off the air because her tail's right on some of the keys. But yeah, so anyway, let's. I gotta stay focused. So, what do you make of this? What's going on?
I did not expect this at all, right? I mean, I expected something like a double count out, something that might lead to a triple threat, something that would kick the can down the road, that would open up avenues of intrigue. But I did not expect a fairly clean finish. I mean, you could argue that Bianca's sort of putting hands on Rio might justify some claims of interference, but they also made it very clear that the referee pulled them apart, gave them the opportunity to clear their head. So it was clean. She just lost it. Right. I mean,
I don't consider that a tainted finish when a wrestler self-destructs as opposed to, interference. That's part of that. I mean, in sports, if you lose your focus, that's on you. That's not a screw finish.
Yeah. And that taunt of, I think the last thing she said was something like, "Hey, Bianca, I'll see you at WrestleMania." Right. So that hubris came out, which, I mean, an old wrestling theme, but is one that they seem to be going to the well on in a lot of the storylines, which I really appreciate. So, yeah, she just lost it tonight. And I got up and I said to my wife, the streets are going to have fun with this one, right? Yeah.
So, Sadler version 3 in the chat says, this is surprising because Triple H hasn't done these shock quick title changes. They've all been long reigns. It'd be interesting to see this story. I'm glad we had that with the IC title. But I think surprising finishes like Jay winning the Rumble, Bron, there's been some things along the way where you're like, okay, and I'm thinking of non-title matches too, where okay, I didn't expect that. And I like that as part of booking. Now it can feel like hotshot booking, but every situation's different. You don't just because you're surprised doesn't mean it's a hot shot. Just because it throws off something, because WWE doesn't need the hot shot book. So I don't know what to make of it. I mean, there's a story here. This chat room's speculating about it. I think Jey Uso, the Jey Uso Bron Breakker finish, Jey Uso winning the Rumble. You could say the Cena heel turn, but that's more Dwayne Johnson than Levesque's booking. I don't think we should put that in the Levesque catalog unless it was his suggestion as part of the very small circle of people discussing this in recent weeks and months, which we'll get into as the show progresses, I suspect. Because I did the VIP roundtable after Elimination Chamber with Todd Martin and Sean Radican, but I wrote a cover story for the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter this week that's on the VIP website that it was a long story with an overview of this and notes on Rock's post show. But I haven't done a free show here on YouTube or on our free podcast feed yet. So we'll get into that. By the way, Brandon LeClaire and Sean Plichta did a great job. I listened to their whole show. Hinton called in as an on-site correspondent in the final 20 minutes. and gave an in-person perspective. Hinton's been watching wrestling a long time, only a second live show. Really interesting hearing his take on the crowd. So I encourage everybody to check that out if you just want to hear the on-site report. Fast forward to that, but they did long show, well over an hour and a half. A lot of chat room interaction, live caller. Brian from Phoenix called in. Longtime VIP member. So good show, and they did a great job with their analysis. Also thought over on the ProWrestling.net membership side, Jason Powell and Jake Barnett did a great post show on it too. I'm really soaking up respected voices on and how they're reacting to what we saw at Elimination Chamber. But like I said, we'll table that for a little bit later in the show. Sure. Winding back, because we're just talking about booking and surprise finishes. That's what got us on the Cena thing. But I don't know what to make of it. The Bianca Belair follow-up, this was a show that followed up on some big things. Cena is is taking a lot of the oxygen away from other things, but this finish brings some oxygen back to the women's title situation. Exactly. Bianca Belair saying, and I liked it. She calmly she didn't sound sing-song cartoonish with cliches. She was a person tonight, like a person thinking about serious things and reacting to them in a more soft-spoken way. And it felt, I wish she was like that almost all the time, but it felt very appropriate for this moment. And she said, out of respect for two friends, Naomi and Jade, she's not going to comment until she talks to both of them. Now we've had 48 hours. If they're that good of friends, maybe she could have by now. But I'll, whatever. They, things happen. I like that. I like that they, are either Bianca was part of it, but she's hoping there isn't evidence. Maybe she's a co-conspirator, but didn't do the attack. Maybe she wasn't on the attack, but Jade didn't see her, and she's hoping she didn't. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Or she wasn't part of it, and Naomi was. That all fits within what we've seen so far, and I like that. I mean, they can. I was going to say drag this out, but drag out has a negative connotation. I like them drawing this out a little bit longer.
Yeah, they're extending it because they realize, and probably we realize, that there's investment there. There's meat on the bone. There's stories to be told. So, dragging it, you're right, it has that negative, but it's more than that. It's allowing it to breathe and not wrapping it up to just move on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
I tend to think that there is much more going on, right? That there is that Bianca's involved in a way, and so the subduedness to her character is betraying that, is belying the fact that there's something else there, man. And we've kicked off the road to WrestleMania, like Levesque said, we're on it right now, but it feels like we've kicked onto overdrive, and these surprises feel organic, right? It's not hot shot, it's not hot potato, it's not ratings boost. These are nice, surprising, logical turns of events in these stories.
Yeah. I mean, we can discuss how organic the Cena heel turn is when we see a little bit more follow-up. And like I said, on the round table, right after the event, I've got some issues, a variety of issues with the execution, but there's no denying it's a huge buzz-generating event. It's raised the interest in the event beyond the core people who were already excited by it. We'll get into that later. I was going to say, as I said on the roundtable that went on, same thing with Jey Uso winning the Rumble. Like, you can't really dig your heels in too much until you kind of you see what story they want to tell. I'm just not sure Cena. I'm not sure Cena's not going to be great as a heel, but I'm also not sure he's not going to be awful as a heel. And I'm going off on it. Let's save this.
No, that's okay. Yeah, we'll get to it.
So, Chris, I mean, it's guesswork at this point, but do you think we see Bianca versus what match at WrestleMania happens? Is it a three-way? Is now Rhea out of it, or does Rhea find a way back in and Io's out? Is there an injury angle, and is Rhea turning heel? Is Bianca turning? I mean, I don't know.
I think it makes sense that they would wind up back into some sort of triple threat, right? That there would be a way for Rhea to get back in, because that's too big. They've teased the interplay, they've set up the angles, but then again, that could be them setting up the angles as misdirection, right? Yep. As something that carries the story on. But I still think we're going to get back to the triple threat. Yep. As far as what we're going to end up between Naomi, Jade, I think that's the logical match, but where Bianca fits in, I still think there's something to that. So I think that story progresses past WrestleMania.
Yep. All right. I don't have a lot more to add. I'm in chat room, and callers and emailers can. So let's pause and introduce the show, and then I want to get to the CM Punk promo that opened today's show. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show on Monday, March 3rd, 2025, immediately following WWE Raw that aired on Netflix. And we appreciate you joining us either live on YouTube or on delay on YouTube or on delay on our podcast feed. I'm Wade Keller, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com, and also the host of various podcasts, including this, the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show, which is live on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. And also the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Podcast, which is a audio-only podcast feed featuring our weekly flagship and pay-per-view previews, interviews, flashbacks, interview classics, much more. Go back 15 years now, some of our flashbacks. It's fascinating listening to those 15 years ago shows back in 2010. So if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to search Wade Keller on your podcast app and subscribe to both the red logo and the blue logo show when you search Wade Keller on your podcast app. It's free to sign up for the two podcasts, red logo, blue logo, and you can not only hear the post shows, but all the audio only shows on both of those feeds. And also, while you're at it, search PWTorch and subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast. That includes, by the way, right now, the aforementioned Wrestling Night in America post show following Elimination Chamber with Brandon LeClaire and Sean Plichta making his podcast co-hosting official debut. Nice. Really fun conversation with them. Brandon did a great job, picked up on details that I didn't as I was doing my report. And since he's doing a report live and I'm doing a report live and his reports have more details than mine, he gets points. Nice. When I miss stuff, but people are just watching and not typing up a report, I'm like, well, that's understandable. Brandon's doing what I'm doing and he's still picking up more details than me. So he did a great job. And lots of, I thought, really poignant opinions on not just Cena, but a lot of other things. So check that out if you haven't yet. There's a different show each day of the week on that feed. It is free. And we encourage you to check it out. It shows WWE theme shows, NXT, AEW, indie scene, the 90s past cast. Really, really good stuff. There's a whole array of voices on those shows. Okay.
Incredible library.
It's
awesome. Something to be proud of.
Thank you. I love the teams that we put together and the crew. And when I have long car rides, it's just like, I'm excited. It's like, yes, I can just like listen to these podcasts. Every co should have a cat wandering around. I love this.
I'm surprised how I don't. I have 5 who live with me.
Oh, wow.
One's asleep over here. I don't know where the other 3 are. This is my personal one. So she's like everywhere I go.
Oh, I love it.
It's Evie, by the way.
Evie?
Yeah, Evie. Yeah.
It like the letters or spelled out?
Like the Pokemon, our son named.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I didn't know if you're naming it for like electric vehicles. Like I thought
that'd be awesome. Yeah. But no, the Pokemon. Yeah. So.
Okay, so a couple more notes. The other voice you hear is Chris Adams. He is a PWTorch contributor. He's a frequent co-host on the show. Chris, tell people about your contributions to PWTorch. And then we'll move from there.
Yeah, well, regularly I write the hits and miss column for SmackDown. This week I focused on the U.S. title tournament, which I think is something that is going to get lost in the Elimination Chamber shuffle and this week's Raw, but important nevertheless. So check that out. But then Kurt Cadet and I are going to be launching a 4-part podcast coming up that's going to be top 10 WrestleMania features. Each week's going to be featuring a top 10 list. The first one that will be coming out, we're actually recording it tomorrow, will be top 10 WrestleMania builds. So we've got some cool stuff cooking up.
Love that.
Yeah, so it's going to be exciting.
I was part of that email thread, and then I got dropped, and now I'm getting this is pleasant surprise. Oh, I don't mind. I told you guys. I'm just saying I knew you guys were doing the shows because Javier is out for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And he hosts Acknowledging WWE. So you guys will be filling in. It'd be fun if that show can go beyond you filling in also. So we'll talk about that. But that'll be on the PWTorch Daily Cast feed. I love that theme. I love when
it's exciting.
Yeah. And I've watched every WrestleMania. I watched WrestleMania live at the Carlton Dinner Theater in Bloomington, Minnesota, right near where Mall of America is now. And I've been covering all of them since WrestleMania 4 professionally. And so there's a lot where people can name what, you remember the first by heart WrestleManias you watch, it's like it, but I'm not good about memorizing like which show had which matches anymore. So it's fun when a fun format revisits them, because it re-cements or brings things back into the forefront of my memory, and then hearing opinions on it too that can be debated is really fun.
Well, I'll give a little spoiler. Part of my top 10 features Bam Bam Bigelow. So we'll be featuring the Beast from the East. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. So we're going to continue talking Raw here, which will include John Cena's heel turn and how they followed up on it. So we invite you to participate in that discussion as the show progresses here. You can join us in the chat room if you're watching us live on YouTube. It's one of the great reasons to watch us live on YouTube if you can, if it fits your schedule after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. If you can't, you can also participate by email. wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. And so if you're watching the shows live, but you can't watch us right afterwards, you got other things to do, but you're going to listen to us the next day on the podcast feed, then you can email us. And that also lets you write a little longer than the chat room allows. So that's another way to participate. And also, if you're a VIP member or Patreon supporter, you have access to our caller code. And so you can call the show and be part of it, audio only or audio and video. It's up to you. And the link to that is in my TV reports at PWTorchVIP.com during Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. Or if you're a Patreon supporter, we just put up a post with that link. So we'll get to callers as the show progresses too. I mentioned the VIP roundtable that I did Saturday night, and also just VIP membership in general. If you're on a VIP member, now's a great time to go VIP. We had some people return and sign up this weekend after the Cena turn, wanting to hear what we're having to say. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. If you get a full VIP membership, it's not just podcasts. Also, I don't know how many words it was, but a very long cover story in this week's two full pages of this week's Wrestling Torch News under my cover story, going all the way back to Rock's promo on SmackDown 8 days before the Chamber, all the way through the Chamber, and Rock's bizarre post-show comments at his press conference. So I wrote about that and summarized it. It wasn't an editorial. It was more, kind of trying to put in perspective what happened, the timeline of who knew what when. Does this really disrupt WrestleMania as much as a lot of people feared? Does it look so? A lot of things covered in that as a kind of march through. I know a lot of people are trying to piece together what happened and were those clues really a sign they knew what they were doing or not, or they so anyway, that's all covered the cover story. So there's exclusive articles I write also, along with Greg Park, Sean Radican, Alan Cunahan, Rich Van, a lot of good stuff, written format in addition to our podcast going ad-free, and then unlocking our VIP exclusive shows. So PWTorch.com/GoVIP. If you like our brand and approach to covering wrestling, a lack of bombast, we're not fanboys, we're not advocates for one brand and anti another. We bring a lot of years of experience and a lot of diverse perspectives, and we just try to cover it in a sane, level-headed way. Every once in a while I lose my mind, but those are hopefully few and far between. So go VIP, support us. We're a small business. We are around because of our VIP members. YouTube is not keeping us going with the amount of content we put out. So subscribe, support us, and we'll give you a lot in return. It's not charity.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get back to actually, let's just bring a caller into the show. Oh no, I said we talk about Punk. I want to be true to my word, even if the caller's going to bring that up. So we'll get to our callers next. So CM Punk, I thought, was phenomenal tonight. This was great material for him. And he was motivated. He was in his zone. He's like, who should I talk about first? And then Cole and McAfee are throwing out A's, the crowd's chanting. And he he unleashes on Rock, which I know people who are not fans of Dwayne Johnson behind the scenes were cheering some of the things he said. But it was canon enough that Punk with a straight face can look at Dwayne and go, just making money. Just making money, bud. And then John Cena, I thought he was great. It's like, I always knew you were, I always knew you had this in you. And then he got to Seth, and we got an email on it, throwing Becky into the conversation was interesting. Drag your husband away before I get to you. So really, really, I mean, there's been a few times, so I don't want to be like Dana White after UFC events where he's like, over the years, he was like, greatest fight ever, greatest card ever. And people are like, yeah, he said that last month and 6 out of the last seven cards. But that might have been the best Punk promo since his return. There's been a couple others that I thought were top notch. By the way, there were some just for objectivity check. There's some along the way where I thought he was not good, especially in the Drew McIntyre thing. It was getting stretched out. And I thought he was losing the crowd and didn't seem, on his game. So this when I say it's really good, I mean, it's not like I say that about every Punk promo. This is great. Chris, your thoughts?
It feels like there's been a shift more broadly in terms of what they're allowing for language, right? We saw that at the Chamber with Cody's F-bomb. But then more importantly, we saw when they retweeted it on their official X account, they did not censor it. Tonight, we had much more swearing than normal, audible, in match and in promos. And so it feels like we're finally getting what we thought Raw and Netflix could be, a little bit more raw. And I think Punk's promo tonight really set that tone. I mean, he was speaking truth, right? This was a perfect example of Stephen King's adage, fiction is the truth inside the lie. There was some truth inside what Punk was saying tonight. You can't tell me when he was
what stood out.
Yeah. Oh, slapping his arms, right? I mean, that mocking something that has become this sign of The Rock's enmeshment with the culture was big. And I'm sure he's going to catch a little flack for it. Not that he cares, right? But it's going to make some money. But it was what I think we all want Punk to be. It was incendiary. Yeah.
Punk called Rock Mr. Midlife Crisis, which you can say because Punk did introduce himself as it was I think a tribute to Terry Funk. He didn't say middle-aged and crazy, but he did say middle-aged and something. And so if you do that, then midlife crisis is fine. He's making fun of bald spots, which I don't know if that's the most babyface thing to do. People can't help it if their hair is receding, but and I'm not sure that Punk isn't growing out his hair long and greasing it back to cover up his own. But who knows what his future is? So you got to be careful. There can be some, probably not karma. You're going to go bald or you're not based on whether you call other people out for it. But who knows? But that anyway, he did say that Mr. Midlife Crisis, you decide to walk in when you feel like it, but you are not gracing us with your presence. Then he mocked his goosebumps on his forum, said he doesn't really love the business. I've never been so delusional to wear a fake title and proclaim myself the people's champion. That Brahma Bull title it's
a joke. And if it really was given by Muhammad Ali's wife in an act of earnest love, cool. But if it really is a prop and they're just using her name, that's even worse.
Oh, that's even worse. I know. Yeah. But you know what? You can bring it out once and go, look at this gift. I'm going to hang it up in my office at home.
But don't wear it out. No.
Yeah, if fans want to wear a title belt, if athletes want to have a replica belt, whatever, but he's a former world champion and then he just creates a belt for himself. It's just, it's a belt. Yeah. Well, Rock's, I don't know. I don't know if he's in the business of getting it these days. Right. In his post-event press conference when he was like, I'm totally comfortable in my own skin, and then goes on with this weird thing about faces and heels and bouncing between the two, and it's this stale construct. It's like, what is he even talking about? That makes absolutely that's a whole rant for another day. Yeah. Or another segment here. Sure. I don't want to take away from praising Punk for what he said. And the brawl with Seth Rollins, it's sort of a thing Levesque's doing a lot of, pull apart brawls, but this was a really good one, Chris.
Yeah, there was viciousness. I mean, I was looking when they were getting in close. It was as if Punk and Rollins knew they had to not just make their worked punches look good. They just had to punch, right? Yep. They were hitting each other in the nose. They were not, but it didn't feel like it was because two dudes who really hate each other. They were just going at it, right? In a way that we all want to see, in a way that felt real, in a way that felt inevitable, right? And I think that's what makes this cage match next week feel big is, this was just bound to happen again. We need to have something more definitive. Yeah. But I thought the brawl was great. I loved it.
Yeah. 99 Mayface says, anyone else think Seth Punk was a little much at fighting? They fought for what seemed like hours. I thought it was fine. I mean, this is it's an intense enough feud, and the stakes were really high. This was. I know they fought a lot, and there's and so. But costing Punk WrestleMania in a way that was unfair, and then Seth trying to frame it. What do you think of Seth's retort, trying to justify it.
So there's something, I think the retort is part of the broader picture of him continuing to wish death on Punk, right? Mm-hmm. There's something about the hatred that is bubbling up from this man's soul, right? That I think evinces some sort of heel turn of his own, right? On the horizon. And I feel like tonight just reflects that.
Yeah. Just back to the Rock comment, standard deviation says, yeah, Rock must be traumatized from being rejected as a babyface last year. So his defense mechanism is to tell himself babyfaces and heels don't exist. LOL. I've talked about that. I think there's a theory that Rock, that I hold as a strong possibility, that he is nervous about fans not reacting the way he wants. So he's doing both. So if they cheer him, he goes, well, they're cheering the babyface side of me. And they boo. Well, of course, I was insulting them. He wants to be cheered and adored and loved, but he needs to have a storyline reason for fans to boo him. And he can go, well, they're just doing that for fun. And because of that defense mechanism and insecurity over what happened last year, we're getting a real breakdown in the structure that creates an immersive viewing experience. I don't think it's helpful. There's aspects of what Rock's doing that are not helpful right. to this. And that's where some of my worries with Cena, that feels out of left field. Is this a way to wedge Rock into something that they haven't really thought through? If they have thought it through and Cena's raring to go, and, they hinted at it with AJ Styles going, hey, you know what it's like to be a veteran and not respected. Yeah. I tell you what, I talk about opportunity cost sometimes, like, well, Jay winning, what did that cost us instead? What did Jay not winning the Rumble do? What would that have done to shake up what they want to do with the people who were favorites to win, like Punk? Yeah. So you have to look at more than just what happened. You have to look at what the effects are, the opportunity cost, the ramifications, the cascade effect. With Cena, the loss that we have is Cena cutting a bunch of repetitive schmaltzy cornball interviews as a babyface. Right. Now, maybe he would step up and be more interesting opposite of Cody in a Legend of one era, the pure babyface of the previous generation. It's a pure babyface of this generation. Maybe some things are said that gets heated. I mean, I think they could have told a good story. I think it's in Cena. But most of what we've seen with Cena lately has not been good. It's been sort of like, we like you because you've been around a long time and grew up with you, but your promos suck. And so there's at least a chance that this will be great. That Cena will be really refreshed as a heel, because before he became a top star and he was a heel, he had an edge to him. Now, I don't know if 50-ish-year-old Cena, who's flying back and forth across the world and all that, credit to him, but I don't know how into it he's going to be. Hopefully on long plane rides and all that, and with a creative team, they've got some stuff up their sleeve. But I'm going to hold out judgment on it. But I have this built-in skepticism that this was done in part just to give Rock a reason to be around. Yeah.
I mean, that's easy, right? And that's what, like, cynically I want to believe, and cynically I think is probably right to a certain degree, given that capitalism is at the heart of this industry, right? It's how it's artistic, it's pulp art, it's folk art. Money's tied to it, so we get that. I really like the idea of what did we lose by focusing on what we gained. There's something like philosophical about that makes me want to wax philosophical. But I think what we could have with Cena, this is my prediction, if we're at a time where you're interested in that, with what the heel turn is. I think we could have a really interesting story about guilt and what it means to cut against one's own core. I don't think Cena's mean mugging at the camera was him posturing. It felt almost like a sociopathic emptiness, right? That something left him when he did what he did. Well, how they're going to explain the motivation of the story has to be airtight for it to work, right?
And I don't have faith in that, considering what if Cena didn't win the Chamber?
Right.
How would they have done? Like I'm nervous about that. In Rock's meandering promos that are bouncing all over the place indiscriminately, I think we have reason not to be cynical and negative, and it's not. But like realistically, the sampling that we have is this is not a refined story so far, even if it's shocking and raises interest level and intrigue.
Well, it's like it's so far okay. It's been a bumpy plane ride, but I think we're on course. If it sticks to landing, it's great, even if the landing's rough. But if it crashes, that's all we're going to talk about, right? And so this is one where it feels like it could crash or burn. If it feels like the egos of the legends take over and steal the moment. But I think Cena could win. I think you could tell a story of him getting what he wants and realizing this isn't who I want to be. And his redemption arc is getting to retire as a babyface and, I don't know, giving the belt back to Cody, letting Cody beat him and reminding him what it means to be who he is. I don't know if that's what we're going to get. That could also be total garbage, what I'm saying, too. So, yeah.
Well, CJ LaChapelle says, how long will Cena's heel run last? I don't think he'll retire as a heel, right? No, Cena's not retiring as a heel. No. I mean, there will be a babyface turn, and I think there's going to be something along those lines that you're describing, Chris. That is the journey we're on. This is not the true Cena. This is an insecure, frustrated Cena, and I mean the beatdown was so brutal. It's tough, like, you know, but it's almost going to have to be almost a severance type situation where he just entered a different zone of his brain and he has to snap out of it. Kevin, that's weird, says, I think the Cena heel turn is so belated, it's not believable at this stage. That was my number one thing. Is I think people are going to react to it the way they say fight forever. This is awesome. It's sort of a perfunctory thing that you do when you see something that you perceive as hitting a certain threshold, or if it's shocking, you're like, oh, this is great. And we've been waiting forever for this. But my standard is it believable? Are they going to take something that lacks instant believability and build a meticulous, foolproof, have a plan and execute it well enough that we buy in? Or is it just for shock value? People are comparing this to the Hogan thing. It's so different than the Hogan thing. Hogan was at the beginning of a whole new chapter of his career. Cena's in a retirement tour. This is, and it also, and Rock is to Cena in this, I would argue, as Hogan was to Hall and Nash. Hall and Nash are doing great. They could have done plenty of things without him. History's been rewritten that Hogan took things to this other level that Hall and Nash on their own couldn't have. Hogan glommed onto them because he wasn't over in Hall and Nash work. Now, his name value and the shock of it absolutely elevated the storyline, but you don't know what the alternate path was had he not joined. And he was hemming and hawing about that. So, but this is different. This is Cena's at the end. This isn't a whole new chapter for Cena. This is a hotshot angle, maybe 5 months in the works, you know, in terms of Brian Gewirtz and Rock and his inner circle talking about it, letting Paul Levesque know what the plan is, which is a whole, you know, intriguing thing about the power dynamic. Wow. And then Levesque keeping it super secret because he knows what's best for him, not even letting Cody in until who knows at what stage, very late in the game here. All kinds of stuff that I wrote about in the cover story that's available on the VIP website right now. So we have all that going on, and that's important to this because this storyline is not done in a vacuum because it's what's best for business and it's a improvement on everything. This storyline is being done because Rock needed a way to be part of WrestleMania to redeem himself after the embarrassment of last year, even though things turned out well, and now we're getting a little bit of revisionist history in Rock and the Post Show going, it's even better. We made things even better because of the double main event, and he's just spewing the, you know, little official corporate phrases now to sort of, you know, give the official government version. Was it Brandon LeClaire who said, well, that the Rock video during the PLE was all you need to know about where Rock's head is at? That was such a weird. Brandon, and this is why Brandon was great. He goes, it looked like a state-run propaganda video.
It totally did.
Yep. And I mean, it like I know some
Yeah.
people just thought, oh, it's a video package. Who cares? I think it's one of the most fascinating aspects of that whole show, and that's saying something with what happened on that show. But that's a top 5 moment on that show. What was that? That was weird.
It was messianic, if I can use that word.
And it's part of a pattern, and it's a pattern that shows itself and leaks out on these, you know, Ava being the GM of NXT. What? How do you not see how bad that makes him look and how unfair it is to her? And rambling promo from Rock at NXT, there's some things now he's sort of gloating, like, see, you thought I was just not making sense, and I was, and you know, there are some things that didn't make sense that now do. The slate isn't wiped clean of all the weird stuff and nonsense and meandering. So I think there's significant enough differences with what the Hogan turn and the Cena turn. And by the way, maybe it's a different era, but fans weren't throwing garbage in the ring. Fans weren't like, fans were acting like, oh, let me react so I can be part of the video clip on Raw on Monday. Whoa, I can't believe it. You know, all those people who do the live shows are like, oh, maybe they'll pick us if we jump out of our couch, and everything just feels performative now. That didn't feel like it rang emotionally true with people. What it was fans going, something that wasn't supposed to happen that shocked me happened, and oh my God, this is amazing. But I mean, and this isn't speaking for all fans, but it wasn't, how could Cena do this? Oh my God, because Rock has broken down the narrative structure in his selfishness or his lack of being tuned in or trying to be the forward-leaning guy who's ahead of everybody, when in reality it's compensation for his insecurity. So there's a lot going on here, and that Rock video and the backstage machinations are important to understanding why what's happening is happening, and it colors it, because what's happening isn't just because, and I'll stop here and kind of wind back to this point, it's not just because it's best for business. What's happening is a result of trying to figure out a way to redeem Rock from last year, take control of booking in a way where he can take credit for this great era, and make himself feel indispensable and valuable to top executives who frankly don't watch the product as much as Chris, you and I do, and the people watching and listening to us. They buy Rock's BS because they don't know the business as well as people who watch every week and have for years and years, and if not decades in many cases. And so Rock's creating this narrative of something that he now is going to take more credit for than frankly he deserves, trying to co-opt the term disruptor as this positive thing. I mean, it's so like, it's fascinating. And that video at Elimination Chamber was part of the fascinating case study of what Rock is going through right now. And Tom Martin was really interesting in the VIP roundtable talking about Rock, or on the Fix too, and just, you know, the VIP exclusive Fix show we did last Thursday. By the way, Chris, Todd's going on vacation to Europe for a few weeks. He's still doing the Fix. So we're doing the Fix every week. He's going to watch all this stuff on. If I was in Europe for 3 weeks, I don't know that I'd be able to keep up on everything. So somebody emailed today going up. Todd's going to be in Europe for a few. I guess there won't be the Fix. I'm like, no, it's Todd. He works on vacation.
That's cool.
Yes. All right.
So I'll tell you what struck. Oh, can we? Something that jumped out at me in the whole Rock thing. Not just the video, but there was constant reference to him as TKO board director. Now that's intentional corporate misspeak, because corporate structure is anybody who sits on a board. It's the board of directors, right? But no one should be called the board director. So it's intentionally obfuscating his role on the board, which is not chairman of the board. But when you continue to have your employees call you board director and my boss, it is so disingenuous as to make me legitimately dislike somebody who I thought brought value to the product and to another culture I love in comic books, but burned his bridges with DC there too. So there's this pattern of let me arrive as the Messiah, and then he actually breaks it, right? And then he says, let me go do my other thing. And so that really got me was, this guy is trying to alter our perception right before our very eyes, which is called gaslighting, right?
Well, really artfully put. And this is, we live in a fascinating time, and there is a lot more than the surface. There's a lot more than the, by the way, Sam Roberts has a Raw podcast that comes out Tuesdays now with WWE, where he's going to have stars on. Sam Roberts showed some balls in that post show. He asked Rock, hey, I mean, he said, I'm a big fan of the Final Boss, and you're great, and I praise you all the time. And Rock said, I listen to your show. You're great.
They called him the wrong name, right?
Did he? No, was that Sam Roberts?
Maybe it was someone else.
Yeah, it was someone else. So Sam's like, I love the Final Boss. It's great, and I praise you all the time. And Rock said, I listen to your show. And he's like, but what's with that promo where you're being a babyface 1 second and heel the other, and you're bouncing all over the place? That was crazy, and please try to make sense of it. And Roberts knew, first of all, that was brave. I think brave of him as a guy in that in the WWE official realm to kind of call Rock out for it. Now, maybe Rock wanted a chance to speak on it, to spin it, because he knows what's being said about it. And so I don't know. I no, but I listened to that and I was like, oh, good for Sam, because now we get to hear Rock spin. And it was spin. It wasn't an explanation that made sense. Spin being all over the place, and we can
Right.
do our psychoanalysis or, of what's going on when Rock does that. But we live in fascinating times, and the Levesque Rock dynamic is part of that. And the Brian Gewirtz Rock, not power grab, but like, hey, look what we can do.
Yeah.
Is really interesting.
For me, where it jumps out to me as not problematic necessarily, but the way that WWE's pattern of revisionist history in essentially claiming to be the purveyors of professional wrestling, right? And that without them, there would be no art of professional wrestling in America, right? That's part of that they try to claim the history of professional wrestling as their own history, which they're a part of, obviously. And so now we've reached a point in both entertainment and professional wrestling where being meta and deconstruction is an important part of how we break down what we consume. And it feels like they're trying to do this, and The Rock is trying to do it in a way which makes him feel like he's this brilliant forward thinker, pushing the art form forward, when actually he's reducing it, because he's not allowing it to be what it authentically is. And
totally.
Yeah. And that's what sucks.
And doing it for a selfish reason to protect his own insecurities makes it more offensive.
Yeah.
It's one thing to earnestly think you're moving something forward and you're just wrong. Like you're just wrong. It's counterproductive, but your heart's in the right place. And the motivation is, hey, I think I can take this to a new place. Yeah. But I mean, everybody shows up. I'm overstating, but like everybody shows up and they goes, what's never been done in pro wrestling before, and I thought of doing and what they're doing is they're disrespecting decades of people who thought of that idea and were smart enough to know not to do it. And so when you show up going, well, that's never been done before, let's do it. Which I've talked to ex-creative team members on my podcast who have said that, and I'm like, the reason it wasn't done is because smart people smarter than you, I'm not going to name names here, knew it was bad for business. They understood how the hot shotting or this unconventional way of shooting something or filming something or whatever, it unravels the foundation of what makes everything else work. And by the way, it's part of why I was more critical than most about the pipe bomb promo. And I know wrestlers in the back were like, well, if I could have the walls that I normally stay within removed, I'd be pretty good there too. Now I say to them, probably not as good as Punk though, but nevertheless, so I don't, we're on a winding road here. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, whenever I feel like this is an appropriate venue for this conversation, because I think Rock and Cena and Cody's business that they did at Elimination Chamber and continuing is part of this. That there comes a point where you stretch an art form so thin that it ceases to be itself, anything recognizable. And I don't think we're there yet.
No.
But what he's doing is he's making the art serve him.
Yeah.
So then it no longer is art. It is purely commerce. And that's always been at the heart of, you've got to make money, right? It's like, but you don't want it to be all about the money and the ego. And that's what we're seeing. And it sucks,
And I think he's talked himself into this is better because he did last year. He said in his little YouTube documentary, PR piece, propaganda piece, like, well, I came in and I thought, there's this many people are excited about Cody, but my audience is this big, and it's way bigger. And I thought we'd bring new people in, and I underestimated the devotion to Cody and the journey. And he was, acknowledged something that you had to acknowledge because it is obvious. It was obvious to everyone but him that this was stepping on something that the audience that had grown without him. There's a boom period without him. And they didn't need him to come in and make it bigger. And I also question, I think there's an ephemeral nature to how many views on social media something gets. It's this thing, it's a thing non-fancy who aren't going to take time to watch WrestleMania. Show me the numbers. Show me money being made from this. The awareness is great. I mean, I'm not saying it's a net negative, but is it more important than what it displaces and the breaking down of the structure and the selfish motivation that drives things that sometimes happen to be beneficial, but just as often, give or take, happen to be counterproductive. Yeah. And then who is this helping? It's Cena's going to turn heel, then turn babyface. He goes away. Rock does his thing. Cody is going to do what works for Cena and Rock. They're not Cena and Rock. I'll give it a chance. I mean, I'm declaring things that haven't happened yet, but my tendency is to think the priority is going to be Rock. Rock injected himself into this and dictated and maybe was cooperative in tweaking it and stuff. I'm not saying that wasn't the case, but this is his storyline that he's injecting. So it's going to be about Rock looking good in the end and telling a Cena heel turn story. It's taking the story away from Cody. The story of Cody against Cena, two baby faces, Cody beating the legend, the pure babyface legacy star from the previous generation. That's about Cody as much as it's about Cena. Right. Now it's all about Cena. And Cena's here for a cup of coffee. And then he's running to a private jet.
That's true.
And so I'm not declaring it a bad story. I do have hope, and I think there's a chance this will be really good. But the core beginning of it is Cody is Miz and R-Truth. Rock and Cena, like he's the guy who's he's not the Washington Generals. I mean, they're not going to, but to the Harlem Globetrotters. I'm not saying that, but he's the third priority in the storyline, and no one else. I mean, name all the people in the bloodline who benefited from the bloodline. Right. You had Jay and Jimmy and Sammy, and Roman got elevated, and then Solo, and kind of a delayed factor, but it plays into it. Is Jacob Fatu and Brock Lesnar babyface turn? I think was in the. I mean, like all in Paul Heyman babyface turn, taking bumps. I mean, that all served a larger purpose that was part of this boom period for WWE. This is about Rock and Cena, so let's see it for it's shocking. It's like, yes, your jaw drops and all that, but I don't know.
I mean, so is it possible that it is punishment for Cody, that it is for what he did, right? I mean, my take on when Cody pointed at the sign, or pointed at Roman Reigns when he won the second Rumble and said, "Roman Reigns, I choose you." From everything I've seen, and you'll know more than me, was that wasn't Cody going into business for himself. That felt like, from everything I've seen, Triple H saying, "We're going to try to get what I think is best and what we've been working on." So he points, right? Says, "It's you, Roman Reigns." My sense was that was a deviation from what they had agreed upon before the match started. That's my sense.
Yeah.
Is it possible that this is The Rock saying, "Man, I'm going to mess it up. I'm a big brother you in the wrong kind of way"?
Yeah, I do not rule out Rock's. I mean, there is turf warfare within WWE that dates back decades with Paul Levesque, that dates back even decades with Brian Gewirtz. This is sort of a revenge tour. Vince is gone. The new regime is there, and you've got Paul Levesque. You've got like this inner circle, like obviously Paul Heyman, a big part of the bloodline storyline, gaining influence, and Paul is mentoring other wrestlers who have risen through the ranks, and so there's other writers who have gained the type of tenure and turf, and gained the type of tenure and have the turf that Brian Gewirtz once had. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on here, and to understand it is necessary in as much as we can understand it with what I hear and what is reported and what people talk about openly. To understand it is to then more properly frame what we see on TV. And if all you do is you judge what's on TV, that's fine. Then in the end, that's all that matters in terms of business. But if you're going to say, is it good or bad for business? You have to go, well, what was the motivation? What did it displace? And who's benefiting from it? And that should frame how we look at it beyond, I can't believe I was in the building when Cena turned heel and oh my God, it was so shocking.
Right.
That's fine. But that's not understanding the layers to this, and that's what's really fun about this.
Sure.
Fun for me.
Yeah. This is a good conversation, man.
Okay. So, Jimmy goes, "Yo, Wade, longtime listener. Happy to see the format change. Thanks, Jimmy." Poor Scott TPA says, "Man, Wade sucking all the life out of my excitement for this angle and match." I'm glad you said that, because this is the thing. I think John Cena has a chance to give way better promos than we're going to get. So I might enjoy this more. Honestly, by the way, our live callers are stacking up here. Hold on. We're going to stop talking to our callers, everybody. People keep adding to the waiting room here. I am more excited about WrestleMania with Cena turning heel, and I think the road to WrestleMania will be more interesting, and I think the Cody Cena match also has a chance to be more interesting. But it's short-term shock value, and it's almost, I feel a little selfish to say, well, I'm more excited because it gives us more to talk about, and my job is to talk about this. So do not be less excited about WrestleMania because Cena turned heel. It's going to be, there's a chance it's better. There's also a chance it fizzles. I mean, like, let's wait and see. But it throws something in that shakes things up. It's disruptive, as Rock co-ops into a positive. But I'm just trying to explain why, like, the context and the motivation of it. So as a fan, be excited. You don't have to resent that it's happening, but be aware of the context if you want to understand it. Way back when I took out full page ads in newsstand wrestling magazines in the 90s, my motto for selling people on this paper copy newsletter before the internet was, and this is also part of our 900 number pitch in ads. We don't just tell you what's happening. We tell you why it's happening, and we tell you first. That was our motto. We don't just tell you what's happening. We tell you why it's happening, and we tell you first, because we had really rapid turnaround for postal mail. So you found out what happened on a pay-per-view on Wednesday in your mailbox, because postal service was really fast back then. We'd publish on Monday, get the mail. People in New York are getting it on Wednesday. That was a fast way to find out about what happened on a pay-per-view that you didn't get to see because we didn't have internet and social media. So, but the middle line was the key to our approach. Don't just find out what's happening, but why it's happening. And that's always been what I've searched for in my reporting and my analysis of wrestling. And that's what I'm doing here. Don't feel bad if you enjoy this and are more excited. And I don't want my wanting to know why it's happening to take away your fun of watching it. We can split those two things. I hope you can, as a fan, go, I'm going to have fun watching this. But I also know there's maybe some motivations here that weren't pure or turf warfare that this is a result of, that maybe I would side with the other side. Maybe not. Yeah. Right. Okay, let's get to calls. Sorry to people who are dropping off. Andy called up and then dropped off when I said we had a long line of callers. So I don't mean to, I should just zip up when I do that. I don't want people to give up. All right, let's go to Rivers. He was the first one on board. Rivers, welcome. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind about tonight's Raw and our conversation so far?
Hey, I have not much to say about Rock and Cena because I just need to hear Cena speak, and then I can judge it. Right now, it's all in the air. So I'm like, I give him benefit of the doubt. I'm holding judgment. But just about this Raw, I got a couple of positives. One, McAfee has had quite a week, right? But I thought he was kind of subdued tonight in a way. I don't know if he was just tired. Don't know if he was maybe, gun shy because of the week he's had. But especially I thought he covered for a less than stellar caterpillar by Otis by saying that Otis dropped the elbow quickly because Gunther, and if Wade Barrett had done that, I would have been singing his praises. So I just got to give it up to Pat as well and say, yeah, that was good. Congratulations.
We had a little quip about Pat when American Alpha were out there, and he was like, I love America. What's wrong with that? And Cole's like, yeah, you made that clear 48 hours ago. Because I think, there's some pushback on Pat because, people are like, oh, I think the term is lame, but the snowflake thing, oh, you can't handle Canadians who suddenly are booing not the country of America, but the current events that Pat is on the opposite side of. I don't know for sure. I think that's pretty clear, but I shouldn't say for sure. In terms of some if the most powerful person in the world is going, yeah, maybe we'll make Canada a state and enacting tariffs, and there's tariff war going on, and suddenly you just feel, let the Pat would be, anyway, it's like, just, it's, if you believe in freedom of expression, let the Canadians express themselves without you being all worried about it. Like, there's things to be proud of and things not to be proud of, no matter what era and what country you live in, and be realistic and not blindly faithful, and understand where they're coming from. And I think it's, you can agree or disagree in a sporting event. That's a place to express it and do it in the way that they are, because it's a national anthem. Maybe silence is better than boo. You can have nuanced views on it, but Pat's just like, oh, I love America, and what's wrong with that? No one says you can't love America. It's just you don't love Canadians expressing discontent with American policy over the last month. Just deal with it. It's not, you didn't need to bring it up 3-4 times during the show. So we got a little dose of that tonight too. Anyway, Chris, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, the American piece was interesting. He took it so personally, and that you're right. That lack of nuance is unfortunate. the lack of recognition. I also thought in that same conversation, they were talking about the price of eggs, and he revealed how out of touch he was with the people that he claims to be of. Wait, eggs are expensive? Like, yeah, brother, because you don't buy your own eggs, right? You're a multimillionaire. Yeah, that piece, it was a 1-2 punch. Yeah.
Did Cole bring up bird flu?
Then, yeah, because basically he was like, eggs weren't, $1 an egg back when the Vikings walked the earth or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And Cole said, well, yeah, they didn't have bird flu then either.
Yeah. So I don't know if Cole was like just saying what's true, which is during the Biden administration, there was a bird flu and a bunch of chickens had to be culled, as we say, the word for killing off mass numbers of birds because of that. And there was a supply issue and prices went up. It had nothing to do with political policy. It could have happened to anybody. And it didn't just happen. It's getting worse now because of current policy. So the bird flu thing was the prior administration faced it. The latest increase is due to actual policy. So I don't know what Cole
figure out.
Yeah. Anyway, Rivers, back to you.
That was meant to be a compliment to Pat. I didn't mean to send you off on a tangent.
Oh, your compliment was taken, and then it will open up a window to cover something else Pat said on the show. I'm not taking away from what you said.
You have quite a lot of European followers, like listeners, and I'm English, obviously. We boo the hell out of national anthems at soccer games all the time. It's not a big deal. Yeah. It's just like banter. Anyway.
Yeah. It's a new thing though. Canada and US, we were best friends until we elected someone who said, well, maybe we'll take over Canada after buying Greenland, and renaming the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, it's just a bunch of, stuff that is just going to rile up a country to go, you were allies, but we can't sit here silently and wait for you to, continue to explore that and talk about us that disrespectfully. So,
second thing, I thought, well, there's a negative in here. The Chad Gable VT, I thought was a little overproduced. I could have done with just Cole saying, and we sent a camera crew, or Chad hired a camera crew. So then anything artistic you could kind of justify as being, well, that was the crew's choice. That isn't what happened. I'm assuming in that box is a mask. We are going to get masked Chad Gable.
Yeah.
Is that going to lead up to a mask versus mask at Mania?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I assume it's a mask too. I was really disappointed he didn't meet Otis or Kitazawa on the street pretending to be a luchador. I wanted that to be, only Gable didn't realize that it was actually, like they show the guy and it's clearly Otis, but he's in a big lucha outfit and he has a but this might be better. I mean, that would be a one-note laugh, and this might be leading to a better place that you bring up. Rivers, what do you think about that, Chris?
Well, the best part for me about the segment was when they were standing in front of the gas station restaurant was a big sign that said, "We take EBT," which immediately took me out of the idea that it was in Mexico, right? That's something that you could film right where they were. So I couldn't tell if it was meant to be a little bit hokey or if we were meant to lean into it with a sense of earnestness.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, Chris. Yeah, that's a good point. This was, I don't want to excuse it because I think leaning towards realism versus overproduction is a call I'd make all the time for anything that's meant to be filming something happening. Sure. Because when you start doing multiple camera angles and cutaway, but this is sort of like, well, the camera's following him around, and it was him walking around all night, and we just spliced together 3 quick conversations, and the camera angle happened to be different. Having like 2 cameras filming it felt a little like to me, my vote, and I know people are really good at splicing stuff together and like to create mini movies behind the scenes, don't like to hear this, but a more organic, just give me a handheld camera and make sure the lighting's good and the microphone picks up what's being said, be professional about it. Just have a handheld, make it feel. That's what I didn't like about Cody and Rowan in the Georgia Stadium and all the like it was clearly filmed multiple times and spliced together, and it was just overwrought and grandiose, needlessly so. And it took me out of it. And so this was less bothersome for what you're saying, Chris, though, in that maybe this was meant to be kind of corny. And if it was meant to be serious, I think immersion is more important, but this is the slice of WWE TV that's sort of wink at the audience.
Yeah, that's where I think it's going to land. It was meant to land, and that's
Yep.
certainly the character they were playing. So there's something fascinating about American Made, that they are the most patriotic characters in all of WWE and are clearly villainous in the sort of 1980s way that Russians were.
Yep.
And I can't tell if that's a reflection by creative or if it just is what it is. But I think it's also a nice commentary on the times, I'll say. Yeah. It fits with the current era.
Yeah.
Their original like log line on their VTs was, "We don't learn from history, we make it." And I think that's a genuinely funny line. Like,
That
someone in that room was genuinely a good writer.
Wait, what was that line from?
The original like VTs is like "They're coming soon" or whatever.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was, "Yeah, we don't learn from history, we make it."
That's unbelievable.
That sounds very American as well. Not
that
to
is
Americans,
right.
yeah.
America's the nation that whose story is we had no story. So of course we make our own, right?
Right. I just want one thing on record, as it's not a discussion, but I was very against it. Then I have a question, then I'll get off. They had a commercial for SmackDown, and in it they said, and I quote, "After the biggest turn in WWE history." Can they use that word? Like, I guess it's fine, whatever, but I mean.
Okay, so this I have an opinion on. I think if a word is commonly used, like heel, it's a little dated. It might be something you hear in a 1940s movie. When people are saying "I reckon" still, I don't know. Like, it's a little bit dated, but it's not an insider term. Babyface is an insider term. Put someone over is an insider term. Oh, we put him over. It's like, I don't even like using that phrase when I write. It just sounds like you're trying to come across like, oh, I'm using insider terms. It's not a big deal, but it's like, I don't know, just it's jargony. And I as a trained journalist, jargon is like, oh, stay away from it if you can. It's less clear and all that. But it's hard to write and not have some of it. But yeah, I mean, turncoat, like, oh, like a person wouldn't go, "My sister turned on me when she told my mom about something I told her not to." Like, you wouldn't say that. So by definition, it's an insider term in its context, but it's not an insider term in and of itself because the public knows without having to look it up or Google it. So it's in this kind of gray area. But it is emblematic of WWE wanting to say, "Hey, look, we're not trying to fool you anymore. We're going to, bring into the public, just narrative usage, these terms, so that you think." It's like, to me, it feels like you're trying to buy credibility with fans by being a little more familiar with them than is genuinely the intent. It's meant to buy them some extra credibility and goodwill with fans, but in a way that feels manipulative and not genuine or innocent. It also could be just without thought. Like, well, everybody knows this, we'll just say it. So there might not be motivations, but even there, I think at the core, like, there's something there. But I guess then the next question is, what would have been a better phrase that would have served the same purpose, but not had that sort of, are they trying to make me think they're better friends with me than they are by using an insider term, and what are they up to? Which is what I think when wrestling companies start getting into the insider jargon business.
I also think
canon.
There's maybe a little bit of bleed over, because I can see the term heel turn being used unironically for something nothing to do with wrestling. I do think that is a term that people just know because of wrestling, but can be used outside of it. So yeah, it's just a weird gray area where those bleed over.
Yeah, like Hassan White's turn is used a lot in wrestling kayfabe all the time. You turn up, but the idea is in the context. When we say like, what was the phrase, Rivers?
It was after the biggest heel. No, they didn't say heel turn. After the biggest turn in WWE history.
Yeah, and there, I think the connotation that triggered you is it's the impact of the business side, the booking decision. It feels that way, as opposed to, you could have said betrayal. The biggest betrayal in wrestling history. And I think there's an insecurity by the people in charge of the narrative of wrestling, and Paul Levesque's had some moments with that, including in the Netflix special, where it seems like instead of just using the best word that's neutral, like betrayals, they're choosing to use a term that's a little more insider that makes people be the new era mark for the con, which is now they're talking to me like I'm one of them. And so I like them better because they're not conning me anymore, but they haven't caught up to the fact that using that term with you is not a sign of respect, but it's a manipulation.
Yeah.
And you're a new mark. You're the new era mark from it. And I have a distaste for that. And so I would rather they say one of the most shocking betrayals of all time. And because that's the better word, and it doesn't have the ulterior motive that to me feels insincere and manipulative. So, yeah.
They seem to do a good job of making the term, I can use that phrase, a big deal. They asked people throughout the show about it. Wade, I know you're a big proponent of that. Did they do that enough, or did they do it too much because it is a SmackDown story? Just how do you guys feel that went? I will hop off and listen to your answer. You guys have a good night.
Thanks, Rivers. You always bring it.
No
We appreciate it.
Have a good
Yep.
one.
I love when I always go to Dusty Rhodes when he was Booker. If Dusty had a big thing going on, he'd instruct everybody doing a promo, before you talk about your issue, talk about me. And I know Dusty's been, talked about, reframed in a very different way than he was perceived in the late 1980s and in the newsletters at that time when he had power and abused it and had a big ego and a lot of insecurities. Ric Flair was a babyface. I think we learned over time, and this is actually a good lesson to learn in life, that Dusty was probably the better person than Ric Flair all that time, but politically, because Flair was a better wrestler and Dusty was more out of shape and had the power of the book and did kind of abuse it, Dusty became the bad guy. In real life, I think we learned over time who the better person turned out to be. So yeah, I love when other people are asked about the impact of something big happening, and I don't care if it's on SmackDown. This is John Cena. It's WWE. It's the first show after Elimination Chamber. Chris, what do you think?
Well, can I actually talk about the manipulation piece? If that's
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Going back to that, have you been watching the LFG show on A&E?
I watched the premiere, and then I had the second episode on in the background. I was doing other work, so I'm about 1.5 into the 3 shows so far.
So that show is, to me, this exactly what you're talking about here. It's constructed so that we feel like we're inside the process.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's done inside the context of a packaged and produced and manufactured experience. And it's not smart enough to convince us that we're not watching yet another permutation of sports entertainment, which is great. I want to watch actors fighting. That's what it is, right? And telling stories. I don't think we need to be inside the storytelling anymore.
Right.
Yep. We're past that point socially even. And so to pretend as if this is a new way to do something is to be behind the times anyway.
Yeah. Right?
It's the return to storytelling in its purest form is what we saw even during like the pandemic, right? This resurgence, and that's where the Bloodline story emerged. So give us just good stories, man. Yeah. I don't care how they're made. I know how they're made. Just give me a good story. Yeah.
I don't like when everybody seems in a race to be the person who's willing to talk most openly and honestly to fans, not because they believe talking openly and honestly to fans is the right thing to do, but they think it will win them goodwill points with fans that they can then use to manipulate them or gain power. I don't like the false pretense of it. False pretense is like one of my top pet peeves in life. I don't like if you want to, I don't know. I got an analogy, examples, but like, don't say you want to do something, and then I find out the reason you wanted to do it wasn't something that made me feel good, but was something that was selfish because you wanted to. Like, the false pretense of opening up to fans isn't because we think opening up to fans is the right thing to do because we love and respect them so much. You're opening up to them to pull them into your web to manipulate them more. Yeah. It's the core nature of the business, and frankly, any commercial you watch on TV, I bring the same little bit of skepticism to. When I'm watching the NHL and ESPN, they're like, hey, look at all the women in production now. It's National Women's Week. And I'm like, You know what? That's good. But then I run through the filter of, is this patting themselves on the back in order to improve their brand, or is it something they're genuinely proud of that they're showing off? Now, sometimes my conclusion is they're generally proud of it and they're showing off. Hey, we're doing the right thing, and we want to give credit to the, we want to show young girls out there there's a place for you in pro hockey, and the NHL's done that strategically because they want to expand their audience. But it's also just, I think you can have earnest people wanting to do the right thing within the NHL, and now they're bragging about the results going. It's about time we got the kind of power and influence we do. It's not just a men's sport. It's not just for men to be in production. But I'm saying in life, I run it through that filter because I know how pro wrestling is. And a lot of times, anything that seems like, it's like, oh, the Ronald McDonald House for McDonald's. Well, that's great, but what is it distracting us from that's going on with your food and your supersizing and the salt content and the horrible treatment of the animals that get slaughtered in horrible conditions that lead to, your food? And that was an issue over the decades with them, that people were like, yeah, it's a nice charity and you flaunt it, but what are you distracting us from about the real business model? Yeah. And it applies to lots of different places, and companies face criticism and then they improve in certain ways, and McDonald's stopped supersizing, and that's good. I mean, we don't need that many French fries in one serving, and you have a right to buy it. They have a right to offer it, but they chose not to anymore because they realized it wasn't worth the blowback. So side topic. Chris.
Yeah, but I think there's something really good in there, right? In that the thing about like the what are we being distracted from, right? Have you ever read Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire? I get this sense you would love that book. It's all about how media and linguistics and these things work on us to distract us. And I think WWE is doing a little too much of it. And it's transparent, right? I go back to The Rock coming on board, and when he got the rights to his name, clued me in that they asked him to come back, right? Mm-hmm. To distract us from Vince McMahon, right? Mm-hmm. Who's the new figurehead? It's the one everybody loves. It's the guy in Jumanji. It's the guy in the Fast and the Furious. It's the one who's the biggest box office success, right? It's Dwayne Johnson. That's our company. We got no skeletons to hide. Mm-hmm. And I think they're trying to do that by telling us they're opening the doors, but really what they've done is they've opened 5 doors but kept 95 shut. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm okay with being manipulated if you're honest about it.
Right. Yeah.
That's how professional wrestling works.
And like, to me, like when Rock's sitting there in the post Elimination Chamber press conference, and it's like, look at me, talk to you like we're just having drinks at a bar because we're just equals, and I'm just gonna be chummy with you and be an open book. Well, he's not. He's doing that to build up goodwill, but you're selective in what he's going to talk about. And there's an edge to some of his reactions, some of the topics that are brought up, and you can see him trying to frame things. Mm-hmm. So in like Scott TPA says, no good deed goes unpunished, and I think that applies sometimes, but sometimes good deeds are not earnest in their intent and wholesome, and it's worth to be a smart to keep yourself from being manipulated by hucksters and con artists. You should understand some good deeds are a veneer around something dangerous, or trying to distract you from something dangerous or selfish. So just be aware, vigilant, and not cynical, but don't just be a mark.
Just don't
for everything that
consume. Yeah. Even art requires critical consumption in the year 2025. Just does.
Yeah. Standard Deviation says wrestling doesn't need to be a carny-based con that tricks and fools people into parting with their money anymore. It's evolved beyond that shady past. And that is true, but what I don't want is that message to be used in a shady, manipulative way. And that's what I see happening, is the co-opting of opening up the business isn't, we don't want to be con artists anymore. It's, what's the new con? We can't I'm repeating myself now. I'll stop there.
You're turning the truth into a con.
Yeah. There's a false pretense to opening up the way that they do that I see through, and I think it's worth calling attention to it. And I think it's worth just pondering that. If you're a fan watching someone open up to you, as you said, Chris, like with LFG, it's like, yeah, but there's certain parameters and there's a certain selfish intent, which is this is a certain slice of the audience that's seeing this, and we want people to watch, and the only way we get people to watch is if they think this show's pulling the curtain back a little bit more than we're used to. All right, let's get to our next caller. We got Jason D in Australia, and then Ryan D. You're on deck, by the way. Jason, good to hear from you. What's on your mind about Raw in our discussion today?
Yeah, thanks, Wade and Chris. I guess for me, the key thing regarding John Cena turning heel on Cody Rhodes is, to me, I don't think the story is about Cena selling out. Is that how personal is this for him, his character against Cody Rhodes? Has Cena snapped because people are talking about Cody Rhodes becoming the next John Cena? And I know they talked about that with Roman Reigns, but realistically, that was never really a comparison. Cody is the closest. And I'm interested to see where Cena's character goes with his promo, talking about, if he will touch on the fact that he's the one that laid the groundwork for all these TV deals. He was there in the trenches all these years. Now, all of a sudden, Cody Rhodes is the new shiny toy. And is The Rock in his ear, I'm talking character-wise, telling him that, you laid the groundwork, I laid the groundwork, now Cody Rhodes is getting all this credit. How personal is this for John Cena? Because that, to me, is a more intriguing story than saying John Cena selling out. Now, of course, you can't ignore the fact that last year at WrestleMania, John Cena tried to help Cody Rhodes defeat Roman Reigns in the Bloodline. He got thwarted by The Rock in the end, ironically. But how personal is this for John Cena? That's what I'm intrigued about in this story. And that's what I think can make it work. And we could see interesting verbiage coming from Cena. Then, of course, Cody has to have a good right of reply, being the babyface here. This is what I'm intrigued about.
So couple things. One, Cody is like what you want. Like I would, at the beginning of any kind of meeting where I talk about what's John Cena's motivation going to be, I would say, let's keep in mind that Cody has won wrestling matches to win the championship. He has won wrestling matches to keep the championship, and our world champion headlines wrestling events, and we promote our world champion as a big star. So what is John Cena resentful of? He won the Elimination Chamber, fair and square. I mean, he did. I mean, stuff happens. I mean, he seized an opportunity, but he didn't encourage Seth to do what he did. But my God, what are you going to do? Like, go, well, let's just call it a draw and fight another day. Like, I mean, yeah. So he took advantage of a situation, but he won the chamber. He got what he wanted, a title match. He's going to co-headline WrestleMania. That was already baked in. I didn't agree at all, and Sean is here. And when Sean and Brandon were I don't think the idea that it was Cody turning him down that led to Cena thinking, let me join Rock instead, and that was on the spot. No way. That was a master plan. I think we're to believe if Cody had said yes, Rock would have said, well, too bad. I don't want your soul. I got somebody better. I got Cena's. Like that in the alt universe of it not being fully under control, I think we're to believe Rock and Cena, no matter what Cody's answer was, would have been beating him down and bloodying him. Yeah. And it was a plan that was hatched, and we'll find out, hopefully, in a way that makes sense when the plan was hatched. Was it 2 weeks ago? Did something happen behind the scenes in a storyline way that Cena's going to bring up that justifies his actions? But the idea that Rock and Cena just said, we paved the way, and so now we're resentful of Cody, that would make them heels, but it just doesn't land with me. Like, well, you're old, and you went on to do movies voluntarily, and Cody's in his prime, and that's what happens. It doesn't ring true to me that Cena would drop everything that we've known about him for 2 decades and go, well, so to me, it's this simple. Cena was insecure about whether he could win the title, and he really wants to. The core foundation of what a heel is, and there's variations and exceptions and nuances and all that, but at the core, a heel cheats because of 2 things. They want an easy path to something they could achieve otherwise, or they have to cheat in order to beat a babyface who's better than them, and they know it. It's one of those 2 things. They either want a shortcut or they're insecure because they know they're not as good, and so they cheat. That's what makes a heel. And you can have an attitude and people can still like you, but they want to see you win with honor or sometimes fight fire with fire. So I hope that at the core they realize Cody has earned this. And if they start going into it, I'm worried with Rock, they start going into the idea of, we don't want you to be the poster boy, so we're going to take you out. It's like, well, now you're talking about the marketing side of things. And that doesn't make any, I don't think it's going to resonate with people. I don't think it's an immersive experience to think now, but I think Rock and Cena might. I don't think Cena, as successful as he was, has top guy instincts for how this wrestling business operates. He's not a disaster, but I respect most top people's wrestling minds more than John Cena. And now Rock is just in some weird la la land right now. So I'm not confident that they're going to cover that base, but it seems so obvious to me to take that approach that I'm hoping Rock and Cena do. They got to the spot they're in. Now it should be Cena's denying he did it because he doesn't think he can beat Cody, but everybody knows that's why. And then we get into some attitude issues that feel petty and unjustified, and it's about somebody aging out and not wanting to come to grips with it. Chris, any thoughts on that? And then we'll throw back to Jason.
Yeah, I've been wondering if there's any element of like the Hollywood piece that gets factored into it, right? I mean, that was one of the things that the final boss kept sort of, offering up to Cody, like the devil in the wilderness, right? I can grant you all this power and stature, my followers in Hollywood. And Cena, who's in film, they could craft a story of, is The Rock going to give opportunities for Cena to advance his own career, which hasn't quite reached the heights of Rock in Hollywood, right? That's how I thought maybe there could be some story element if they wanted to incorporate more than just wrestling, more than just the title.
No, interesting point. Rock told Cody, if you accept my offer, I can make life easier for you. You want to do those grueling European tours. You can work work a part-time schedule more than this full-time grind. But of course, Cody at his core, his whole character loves the grind.
Right.
He loves signing autographs backstage and not just playing video games, looking at his phone. He wants to do all that stuff. They market him. He stays late. He shakes hands. He's like, that's at the core who he is. So it was never believable he would say yes to that, except for one thing, which is Rock going, you can be home with your wife and your kid more. Yeah. And now all of a sudden Cody's like, is it selfish of me to put wrestling fans ahead of my family? And I think they could have hit that note in a way where you could have even believed Cody pondering it, going, I don't want to do it that way, but Rock is promising me a chance. And, it's tough leaving my Brandy to handle all the parenting duties so often. And maybe he's, you could imagine him, and then you would trust he would shake out of it, but you'd understand him thinking for a second, maybe because obviously Cody has the clout to say, I want a lighter schedule. He doesn't need Rock to give Rock his soul. And that should be a point that can be made by the announcers or Cody himself. So Cody, the pitch from Rock to Cody doesn't apply to Cena. Cena has the clout. Okay. He shows up for one show and then he flies back to his movie set. He wasn't around, as Punk pointed out, and others. You're on your retirement tour and you're not around. So Cody doesn't need anything that Rock offered Cody. Cena has it. Cody's richer than Cody. He can set his own schedule. So what is Rock offering Cena? Is it like, and we have to see that show up in a way where we understand that was the bargain Cena made that convinced him to go against at the core, who will eventually find out he still is and truly is. What did Rock offer him that's tangible within the canon, within the narrative of wrestling? Not, you get to be part of a hot storyline and part of 500 million social media views. That's not a story. That's the side effect of a story that good and bad stories get a lot of. There's a lot of bad things that get a lot of traction on social media that are not helpful to anything other than social media views. So to me, I hope they have that figured out. Jason, back to you.
Yeah, but see, to me, there was too much storyline-wise. There's too much left up the chance in the chamber that John Cena.
Oh, totally. That's the biggest flaw. That's the biggest hole in all this. Yeah.
That is the biggest hole. So you can't, like, Rock didn't blatantly cheat for Cena. Cena relied on luck with Seth Rollins stomping on Punk. And even, John Cena wasn't the last person to come out of the pod. Ironically, it was CM Punk. I mean, I would much prefer for CM Punk who turned corporate here, because I think now you've got a real story to tell. But in any event, if he sold out. But with John Cena, there's simply too much left to chance there.
Yep.
That's why I'm saying Cena going to The Rock, I need your help to win this 17th title. This story doesn't make any sense.
No.
What does make sense is The Rock has this evil final boss getting in John Cena's ear, talking about, who the hell does this Cody Rhodes think he is? It has to be more personal than winning the championship. There has to be some juice behind The Rock being the evil devil on John Cena's shoulder. Now, eventually, Cena will turn against The Rock, you would feel, and go back to being a babyface. But even I'm hesitant against that for Cody's sake, because now Cody's a two-time sucker. and two-time forgiving. Number one, he's already storyline-wise forgiven The Rock for blooding him after last year's WrestleMania. That got all swept under the rug. And look, Cody got made to be a fool of again by The Rock after forgiving him. And if he ends up long-term forgiving John Cena for what John Cena did to him, again, that's two people that have beaten the crap out of him. And Cody's like, well, it's okay. But that's down the line. And, you know, that's not good for Cody's character that he accept that. But regarding what we're seeing at WrestleMania, for me, there is more juice in John Cena taking it personally that Cody Rhodes thinks that he is going to measure up to John Cena. Because John Cena has always talked about, you know, he wants to see someone grab the ball by the horns and be that person. But it can be a fake thing to say. It's like you want someone to do that, but deep down you believe they can't. But when they actually show they can, it actually pisses you off. And I think, who do you think that you are? That's where I think there's more juice in this story, that The Rock is the devil on John Cena's shoulder, telling him, you know, trying to work against him against Cody Rhodes. It's not about selling his soul. It's about, who does this Cody Rhodes think he is?
Why? So Rock has a pure storyline personal grudge against Cody that he pretended to mend as a way to try to get Cody to sell out. So then he could humiliate Cody by going, you just sold out. You're going to get nothing for it because I don't want your soul. I think we have to believe that was the case, because why strike a deal with Cena as a B plan? Cena's not going to be anyone's B plan. So if I think we have to, and I don't know if they'll incorporate it into the narrative overtly, but we have to think Rock saying, oh, I buddied up with Cody and we've had private conversations, and, you know, the Netflix, and he's complimenting him on the Netflix Raw special. And all of that was a master plan to try to get Cody to sell his soul. So Rock could go, I don't want it. I got Cena's. Instead, I'd rather have his. But Cody didn't fall for it. Cody was given every temptation in the world and he didn't take it. And that makes him a stronger babyface. I think we have to believe that. If we care to think that hard about it, that's the only explanation that makes sense. And Cena, there has to be a storyline. There has to be an understanding that at some point, and Cena doesn't have to be part of it from the beginning, but Rock's like, we can do something with Cena. Rock did not sit. Cena winning the Rumble, or I'm sorry, winning the Chamber. Forgive me if I say Rumble. If Cena won the Chamber and a week went by, we could imagine a story, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks went by. We can imagine a story where Rock goes to Cena and goes, now you're the guy facing Cody. I can help make your dream come true. Now, I haven't thought through what that would be, but another, and unrelated, but it could happen at the same time or separately. If Cena had wrestled some matches, or he was the last one to enter the Chamber, and his leg gave out when he hoisted, whoever was it, Punk on his shoulder? Who did he hoist on his shoulder and then do the fallaway slam? It was someone in the match. The Punk, yeah. So he did that, and let's say he didn't pull it off, and he dropped Punk, and you could see Cena's heart sink, and you could see visually, I don't have it anymore. I can't do the moves I used to do, and you could see on the spot this dream of winning a record title. 18 title is going away, and the announcers, are talking about it, but they want to be polite, not draw too much attention to it. Then fans are seeing somebody who is desperate for this, and Rock then takes advantage of an insecure Cena who can't do what he used to do, and everyone can see it. And it almost looks like it's inevitable that Cody's going to beat Cena. And then Rock goes to Cena and says, let me help. And Cena goes, how can you help? And Rock pitches it one way, but in reality, it's not pro Cena. We all see it, but Cena doesn't. It's anti-Cody. And Rock starts using his power to weaken Cody leading into the match. And he gives Cena a cush schedule. There's ways to have had Rock manipulate the situation in a way that protects Cena for his babyface turn later. But you understand a little bit why Cena does it. You think he made a mistake. But you see what's really happening is the final boss is still angry at Cody. His plan backfired because Cody didn't buy into the temptation. But the order of things didn't work out. It didn't work out to tell the story that way, unfortunately. There was room to tell that story for whatever scheduling reason or whatever, they didn't. But having it to be apparent to us that Cena could not achieve his dream without succumbing to Rock's offer, and that this is all not about Rock genuinely thinking Cody or Cena can help him. It's anti-Cody, so he's going to help Cena. I think that makes this work for me. There's other ways to do it too, but I don't think the way they've done it so far is going to work without some holes, especially what sparked this, which is what if Cena hadn't won the Chamber. I still haven't, Jason, come up with an explanation that makes any sense for that. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I got to get going soon. But in relation to that,
you called us. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm not trying to be smart ass on that.
It was you know the spirit in which I said that.
I know the spirit.
Yes.
I'm not going to take it personal. I'm not Canadian. I'm Australian. Anyway,
we're coming for you next.
That's right.
What did we do, mate? We're everyone.
You don't have to do anything. That's the problem. You don't have to do
We
anything.
did nothing.
We're going for Greenland, and then we're going Canada. We got the Gulf of Mexico. We're coming for us.
No, we're too far. Everyone complains that it's too far away down here. Hey, we're getting 3 events. This is coming back to Perth. We're getting Raw, SmackDown, and a PLE.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, in relation to if Cena didn't win that, listen, I've thought about that, and the only thing I can come up with is that The Rock as the final boss is going to say, look, I always had faith in John Cena that he would win. But if he didn't win, I had a plan B and I had a plan C. But that's all what ifs, okay? And it didn't happen. You know, what if this, what if that? John Cena did win the he can just in his own way just sort of brush past that, and we would be like, okay, that's a little bit too convenient. But realistically, that is the only thing that you could possibly say. Because what else could he say? Because it was all left up to chance, really. That's why if The Rock helps John Cena in that match blatantly by giving him the last pod entry and just blatantly interferes and doesn't leave anything up to chance, then this would all make sense. But what we're all trying to do here, Wade, we're all trying to make sense of it for them. Like we are trying, because we feel like WWE has come so far in the past couple of years with Paul Levesque in charge that they have been pretty good for the most part at crossing their T's and dotting their I's. And we want them to do that with this particular story because they've been doing it all along, especially with the bloodline. So we don't want them just to brush off things and say, oh, that's just wrestling. Who's going to think about that? We deserve more of that as an audience. And they've been giving us that. So hopefully they do that. Anyway, I got to go. I realized I called you, but I have to go. So
no,
sorry.
I'm glad you called. And I know sometimes your time is tight. So
relax, mate. Mate, we're Australians. Listen, hey, Rhea Ripley, she's not taking it easy there as an Australian. I think she's more upset about herself there. You know, the way that you're right. She did go off on a bit of a tantrum. I think she's more upset of herself, like letting that slip storyline wise. So that's going to be interesting there. But I got to go. I'll let you guys go and enjoy the rest of the show.
Jason, one more thing. No, I'm kidding.
Mate.
Take care.
Yeah, go on. Go.
Yep.
Now say it. What is it?
No, you said you had to go, and I was pretending I was going to keep you around longer. I don't need to keep you around longer.
God, you are terrible. You're just terrible.
hey, Jason, I said it's fair dinkum, pal. So
fair
We're
dinkum.
good. Yeah.
Fair dinkum, mate. Fair dinkum. Good on you. All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Jason. Catch you soon. All right. Ryan D, you are up next. Ryan, what's on your mind about Raw tonight? Ryan, are you there?
Hello?
Hey, Ryan. Yep, we hear you.
All right.
Not gonna lie, sorry.
Ryan, you're on there.
Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry. Never been on here before, so.
Well, good to hear from you. You are now live, and all you have to do is tell us what you were thinking would be a good contribution to the conversation.
Well, let's see. Let's continue with Rock and Cena. No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm only joking. I kind of wanted to talk about I really enjoyed the main event of Io and Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, does this just mean they're going to end up doing triple threat, or did you guys already?
No, we haven't.
You guys already discussed about this because, like I said, I did kind of. I went away for a minute, so I kind of missed part of the conversation.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. We talked in the opening 10 minutes of the show about this, and I think every possibility is open right now. The Jade thing could take Belair away from the shot she earned. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Belair's going to get her WrestleMania shot. So is it one-on-one against Io? Or does something else happen? Does Rhea Ripley sell her soul to The Rock? And Rock says it's a triple threat. No, you get a match. I mean, they're into surprising us. And what would be the other shocking turn? And it'd be Rhea Ripley at the peak of her popularity siding with Rock. I mean, I joked about Jay winning the Rumble, and he did. So I'm joking about something that's going to happen. But Ryan, I think all options are open. I think the most likely scenario is Rhea gets a rematch. There's 6 weeks to go. 5 Raws, I think. She just gets a rematch and wins, and that's fine. You know, I mean, there's a long path to WrestleMania this year, so that's my thinking. But I think they want us all I think they want Rhea fans in a panic right now. I don't know that having her lose her mind over something as innocuous as Bianca daring to have someone she wanted to win or showing encouragement to somebody, and then losing her mind is flattering to her. And I question the booking decision to portray her that way. But I don't know where they're going yet, so I can't forcefully say it was wrong. But it strikes me as not a flattering portrayal of her tonight, and I don't know that they're going to account for that. So what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, there's also the question of Bianca's WrestleMania streak, right? Which is sort of a streak. I don't know what the number's up to now. She hasn't lost a match at WrestleMania. So is this an opportunity for them to tell a couple different stories? Her not just losing the title, but losing this thing that she's been carrying. So I think the story they could tell with Bianca and in whatever permutation of Io, Rhea, however, is going to be Bianca-centric and will revolve probably, in my mind, around some sort of decline for her or descent for her.
Ryan, back to you.
Oh, man. I mean, really, that was all I got, to be honest with you.
Okay, yeah. No problem. Appreciate you calling.
Good question.
Call again. Yep. You don't have to. People can call up and ask a question and jump off, or you can ask questions, stick around, and go. That's all.
You mean they're not required to stay here for an hour?
No, they are not. Dang. That is not. CJ LaChapelle is up next. CJ, welcome. Your icon on the screen is of Bailey. That does not shock anybody. What's on your mind tonight about Raw? CJ. All right.
CJ.
We'll come back to you. All right, let's go to Sean, who co-hosted with Brandon after Elimination Chamber. Sean, good job.
Are you Wade? Are you just saying that? Are you just saying that?
10% of me is. I thought you could be 10% better. You're 90. I think if you're 90% good, then you're good. Everyone's like, "Is Wade awesome. Serious?" Everyone's like, "Is Wade serious? Is he doing a job evaluation live on the air?" Yeah. Sean asked. I'm just deadpanning my answer.
Do I need to
People can
jump
choose.
off for a second?
It's getting hot in here. It's getting hot.
I hear my mom call.
Sean's like, "Really? Was I?"
No, that was fun. No, that was a fun show. There was a lot to talk about for sure. I'm glad I was able to be on with him. But I want to talk about this, what we were just talking about, because I'm glad Ryan brought this up. I was watching it a little bit later because my schedule might change. So I actually might be able to watch Raw more live, which will be a lot more fun for me. So I'm trying to think of this. Okay, so they had Io come out at the Chamber. Like, we know Rhea's going to face Io. So you're like, okay, you don't assume it's going to happen, but they're trying to taunt it like, oh, that she's got to face Io. She's got to beat Io. Remember when Rhea faced one of the matches against Liv where she was so focused on freaking Dom that she wasn't worried about the daggum match? Well, it was the same thing tonight. Wait, it was stupid. It was bad. She does not need to be, oh, well, you're cheering for... She was cheering for both people to have a great match, and whoever won. She didn't care about one person in particular. And for Rhea to get that...
She's scouting. I mean, it's okay to scout. And
yes.
Frankly, it shouldn't be Rhea should be flattered that she was helping Io win, not upset. Just
focus on the match.
Yeah,
worry about winning the match. And so now, granted, I love that during commentary, and Pat McAfee did a better job tonight. He was better about saying, like they had on the screen going into it, that Rhea's never beat Io. And I like that they had that on there because it's like, okay, Rhea's getting more and more frustrated during the match. I can't put her away. Why can I not put her away? I wouldn't have had Io win. And I like Io. I'm an Io fan. I want them to do more with Io. I just think just to shock somebody, shocking can be good. And I'm willing to let it play out. But Bianca, again, already has her Chamber win. She's already in the title match. I just think build to Rhea was in a good spot to where I just think let it go to Mania and play it out and see what happens. Now, like you said, she could still win the title back. I don't know. I think they could. I would. Well, it's hard because again, they did build the EO winning again, and now can Rhea overcome EO? But I think you almost want to build a longer story with that, not just in a 2-week thing. Well, oh, can she beat her? And then 2 weeks later, she just beats her again. It's like, I don't know if I'm a fan of that. I just didn't like the way the match was laid out as far as Rhea getting that frustrated about something so minuscule. It didn't do it for me. It didn't help me get behind her in any way.
In and of itself, it looks bad. We don't know yet what the purpose of it was. And I think in 1 or 3 or for sure 6 weeks, we'll have enough information to know, yeah, that made it look bad and there was no purpose to it. And I disagree. Or, oh, I see what they were doing. I didn't think about that. I don't need to know where everything is going ahead of time. Sometimes it's a head scratcher, but it's the beginning of something where you're meant to be scratching your head and let it play out. So I stand by what I said. Like, it made her look bad. I hope they know that and work that into their plan. If they didn't, that's unfortunate for Rhea. If they did, then let's wait and see. I'm not going to fret over it when it's chapter 1 of a multi-chapter story. If they're just doing it to have a rematch on TV and play hot potato with the belt, okay, that's your time. This is your time to do it. There should be a larger purpose to it that hopefully isn't just, well, we need a main event and we want to shock people. Because you can't, you'll burn people out on that. It's like, having cage matches too often. It's just like, well, it's a gimmick. And the reason cage matches mean something is they're saved for very special feuds at the peak, not to pop a rating every 3rd week. And we went through an era where that was happening and cage matches lost some of their luster, thus begat the Hell in a Cell, which is an elimination chamber. Well, it's not just a cage match. That's just a thing we do. This is bigger. Still hot potato title changes. Don't overdo it. But every once in a while they get to do it and it's fine. I mean, that would happen in real sports. I just think Rhea looked bad, and Rhea's a phenomenal talent, personality, and she's mega popular. And this looked like a window into a side of her that I don't think is flattering, and I hope they know that and there's a purpose for it. That's all.
And if I just think if EO wins something, it should feel bigger. It just felt like she's just kind of a cog in a plan of a story that is kind of. I just think EO is more valuable than that. I mean, yeah, she won the title. Yeah, that's cool, but it just felt like I so out of left field that I was just like. Than I was, oh yeah, good for EO. I'm happy for EO. It just made me feel like, why are we doing this to, like, why is Rhea's character having multiple times now where she looks like she's not focused on winning and it's about all this other childish stuff?
Yep. It's a problem. I mean, I'm with you.
Yeah. So
we'll revisit it and see.
So Chris, what do you feel about Rhea, what they've done with her lately? Because and she needs to stop singing her song coming out too, by the way.
There is a weirdness to the continual lip syncing of the song, which adds to the like odd performative piece. And there's the childishness is like, it's the worst version of it. It's petulant, right? It's possessive in the wrong kind of way. It's more than, to me, not flattering. It's not how your babyface, how your heroes want to act. And she's a hero.
Yeah.
That's what the thing is. Regardless if she wants it or not, she's a hero now, right? Yeah. And so we need to see her behaving in ways that are consistent with that. So that's my take on, at least on Rhea's behavior, on the strangeness of the presentation. And I'm not sure they quite know what to do with her, right? To a certain degree.
Don't overthink it. That's my answer. Just let her be Rhea. People love her.
Just be cool.
Yeah. And you know what? If EO beats her and Rhea stands up and shakes her hand, but she looks crushed, that's a sports story. Sadler version 3 says, I think it was because it was the best way to protect Rhea? All 3 are faces, so cheating wouldn't make sense for any of them. Well, that's a terrible reason not to do a clean finish. We're protecting Rhea. No, you're not. I'd rather Rhea lose. I say this about babyfaces all the time. I'd rather they lose clean than lose because of it, because they allowed themselves to be distracted about something that was not an imminent threat. And they do that all the time, and they think they're protecting the babyface by having them needlessly get distracted by somebody who's 50 feet away on a stage. It makes them look undisciplined or stupid or whatever. So that was not protecting her. It might have been what they were trying to do because they think, well, Rhea losing to EO, that's bad for Rhea. Why? EO's super talented. People respect her. Good sports teams beat good sports teams. They could have told that story, but so we'll see. I hope that's not why, because I disagree with that philosophically. What else, Sean?
Yeah, so wanted to talk about. I mean, the Penta stuff was. I mean, it was kind of just there. It wasn't anything super huge, but I just Penta just with Kaiser constantly. It's like I want them to go somewhere with Penta. I feel like he's just kind of going with Kaiser, and it's like, okay, let's get past whatever we're doing. I mean, where do you think where do you think Penta's going? Because it just feels like he's just going with Kaiser just constantly now, and it feels like it's just in a whirlwind, and we're not really getting any kind of finish from this and trying to see where he's going to go next.
I think we're only like a month into the feud. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I think Penta is a merch selling mid carder. I've never.
That's what it seems like so far.
I haven't been convinced that he's a main event guy. He is some of his in-ring. I don't think he's as dazzling as Rey Fenix. I think he has charisma, but I think some of the stuff he does in the ring, it hits on some of my things that I think are counterproductive to an immersive viewing experience. When watching a match, he plays to the camera in a way Sammy Guevara did, where it's just like, come on, let's just focus on winning instead of getting over, stuff. So there's things about Penta that are great, but I think he's mid-carders I think he's a second tier, secondary title guy who people will pay to see because he's charismatic and colorful and talented, and he has an X factor to him. But I think feuding with Kaiser good. Kaiser's a guy in the rise. It was. Yes. There's no shame in feuding with Kaiser for a month.
No,
I think WWE set expectations higher, but this is perfectly fine. There's only so many main event spots, Sean. Where would Penta be other than feuding with Kaiser and Pete Dunne? I guess he could just be U.S. champion by now, but I don't think there's a reason to rush it. I think he will. I think he'll win a secondary title.
And I like Kaiser too, so I think Kaiser getting the win in that match last week was good for him because he needed some wins to kind of get some. You don't have to win every match, but I think you can't lose every match and just all of a sudden think you're going to go up from there. I think he needed to, and I'm excited whenever Dragunov does come back, which I think will be, hopefully pretty soon. So that'll be fun whenever he does. But I want to talk about Bron just real quick too. It's weird because I like Bron a lot, and I'm not down on like what they've done. It's just they're so in the middle. It's like he's with AJ, he's looking at AJ, and then he's all of a sudden, now Finn Balor's kind of gotten in the picture, which it was a cool stuff with them. It was fine with them tonight. It's just I don't really know where they're going with Bron either. Like, where do you think they're going for the Mania match with him? Because they want to do something big with him, and I think they should. I just don't know. He just feels like in the middle. It's a face. Is he a heel? Like, what is he? That's where I'm kind of struggling with him, I guess, right now.
I think they want to eat their cake and have it too with him, but in a good way. I had to. I think Bron Breakker is Bron Breakker, and he's
a badass.
He is not, and Rock would love this. He is not in the babyface heel construct, and it's justified. Bron Breakker's a badass, and he is who he is. He's not looking for cheers, but he's not giving you a lot of reasons to boo him either. And so they have the option to have him be primarily and eventually exclusively, for the most part, against babyface and be heel, or against heels and be a babyface. Right now he's against Finn Balor, and so you get permission to cheer him if you think he's badass and kind of cool and doesn't do anything too wrong where you feel guilty cheering him. And that's kind of how he's being booked right now. But he also doesn't care about the fans enough to be. I mean, he does a little bit of playing into the parking or whatever, but I don't know. He just seems like he's a guy on a mission to become a top guy. Yeah. And I think that's his character. He's a badass with exceptional athleticism and power and speed. And he doesn't care about anything but beating people up, and eventually he'll have a mission statement to win a world title. That's who he is. And you know what? I like that being an exception to the rule. And it's why the babyface heel construct is essential, because now the exception in Bron Breakker works so well for me. You don't have to know where they're going, Sean. Don't hold it against you. You're not missing anything. That's a feature, not a flaw. They want to keep you guessing on him. He's consistent. Yeah. Unlike Rhea, it's like, he's consistent. Like, this is not inconsistent with his character. So I'm okay not knowing. It doesn't, like with Tiffany, I think they hedged. With Gunther, there might have been a little oh, maybe we're going to go babyface. No, we better not, because they like Dom more than him. Maybe that happened. With Tiffany, it was like, people are cheering her, but they didn't adjust her character. Those I don't like. That's figure it out instead of vacillating and bouncing back. But with Braun, I don't think it's that. I think it's by design. I think and Finn Balor's a good, credible opponent for him to beat. And then he'll move on to somebody else.
So here's to me, this dichotomy of what The Rock was trying to do with the construct of breaking up the babyface heel. And then
he doesn't believe that. He says it to excuse his meandering promos that make no sense because he doesn't want to be embarrassed on live TV by getting the wrong reaction. So he goes for every reaction and says that's what I wanted. I just want to be sure. I'm sorry to interrupt, Chris, but I want to insert. It is not a philosophy that I disagree with. It is not a philosophy. It is an excuse. It is a defense mechanism.
Absolutely, and because now he set that up though. What that's done is it's rendered the choices that these characters made to be immoral. Bron Breakker is amoral. For him, good and evil is not a thing. Mm-hmm. It's not bad or good, right or wrong. It's power, right? And he's powerful, and he's going to exercise it because that's what he's made for.
He wants to excel at what his chosen craft is. Yeah. He's like, some people want to succeed in wrestling because they want power. He doesn't want power in a general sense.
No.
He just wants to beat people up, and whatever happens. I'll make money and win titles. Great.
Real power, not stature, but power, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes him interesting as opposed to somebody like The Rock's waffling idea of the new character back and forth heel babyface. No, if you are a babyface and you are aware that your heelish behavior is bad, that just makes you bad. It makes you a terrible person. Bron Breakker, he's there to break things, right? And that's why we love him.
Yeah. Sean?
Yeah, because I think it's funny because Finn Balor, I still think, could have been so much more in WWE. I really do think he could. The injury obviously just really hurt. I mean, at the very beginning. I mean, if he wins that title and keeps going, I mean, there could have been some good stuff for him. But like you said, he talks so well that he gets you invested about himself getting crushed. And so when Braun crushes him at Mania, if that's what they're going for Mania, it's like, okay, that's, it's cool. Braun's on the right track. If it builds up to I would love to see him against AJ if they do.
Yeah, I think it's almost obviously Bron Breakker and AJ Styles. I mean, I don't know that, so it's not a spoiler. I just think obviously that's where they're heading. And I think Finn Balor is something to fill a couple weeks of TV.
Yeah, and I love it. Yep. And I love that.
And it serves another purpose too. Braun is getting a win over somebody credible, but it's telling a story about the Judgment Day and needing a new person, and Dom getting his way, and who is that third person. So it's serving two purposes. And Braun is it's more of a side player in this, even though he's going to win the feud. They're not feeding Finn Balor to Braun to build up Braun. Whoever Braun faces Braun's going to beat at this stage, unless they're not going to put him in main events yet because they got their WrestleMania main event slots filled. It's not his time. So he's going to beat up anybody who's top of the second tier, bottom of the top tier guy. So he's there to win whoever's throwing at him. But this feud is what it is because Finn Balor's in a storyline where he needs to lose clout with Dom and Liv and Carlito so they can bring another person in. And I think that's where we're heading.
Yeah, and so going back to I wanted to talk about just Gunther real fast again, how awesome he is. Oh man, so
we haven't talked about it. He's great.
That stuff with Otis was so much fun. Just coming out, just bragging Otis, and it's just I love because Gunther felt like he was in a weird spot there for a little bit, but he's right back on track to where he should be. And even though I think they're ultimately going to have him lose at Mania, which is probably the right thing to do. I just want them to continue to have Gunther on the right path because he's still such a huge star, so much good stuff. I thought Jay's promo backstage was fine. I thought it was. I know sometimes I think in my head, it's kind of cliche, like, oh, nobody thinks I can do it. Can I do it? Do I really? I mean, with Jay, it makes sense because people have doubted Jay being a main eventer, and I think that's what they're just kind of going with. And it's like, okay, it's fine. It's not like, oh, I like it. The good thing about Jay's promos is he is real. They're not like perfect, but he's just being genuinely who he is, and I do like that. And so I thought everything tonight was really good. So I mean, I still think they need to. That's why I like they're having Gunther go through people and just kind of get away from Jay a little bit because it peaked a couple weeks ago. So what have you guys thought about what they've done with them the last couple weeks?
Wade, you're muted.
Of course, I got to keep the streak alive. Speaking of streaks, Standard Deviation says in the chat, Gunther Jay is an island of good traditional storytelling that provides stability to an otherwise chaotic build to Mania. So I thought Jay's promo was good. I think the idea of him going, oh, I've got some doubt, and people are telling me, and I'm doubting myself. He's coming out to save. He's being a babyface who's standing up for others at the risk of something he has guaranteed and locked up. And that makes it even more admirable. And it also makes sense that because, as Sean, you say, it peaked. You could say, well, it peaked. Well, I hope that's not true. But one of the ways to make sure it doesn't peak is that there are more chapters that bring us to a new place that feels fresh. And if Jay had the willpower, for lack of a better term, to resist all the people saying you don't have a chance against Gunther, and he's running out of it, that's a story. Then the story is it peaked early. So you're taking a negative and turning it into a positive. Yeah, it would have been great if Jay had the title shot against Gunther in Elimination Chamber. He didn't. So they're taking what seems to be a flaw. It peaked early, and they're going to own it. And they're going to tell that story for the next 5 weeks. And if that's what they're doing, I think I could like that. Let's see him do it. And Gunther's great. And Gunther, having people on, having other people to feud with on the side, we're going to see a lot of that. It's got 5 weeks, 5 Raws till WrestleMania. There's going to be little feuds that happen before we get to knowing who Bron Breakker is facing. Well, we're going to tell the Finn Balor story first, but then AJ will step up.
I'll tell you, the way that story makes most sense to me and is most satisfying is if it is not the same story told or a similar one when Jay got the Intercontinental belt. Mm-hmm. Oh, he did the same stuff, right? He didn't really do anything different. He didn't have to dig down deep. He had to do a few extra super kicks, right? Mm-hmm. He had to catch a spear, right? He didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
I contend that the match with Gunther at Mania could be awesome, even in a vacuum, if they did some serious work together to surprise the hell out of everybody, right?
Yeah.
Have Jay be somebody who said, look, you thought I couldn't do it, so look what I've been doing on the side. Build up a story of him training in the dungeon. They do that with everybody else. They do that with people from AEW, right? So you could tell a story. And did you notice Jay's been building mass? His arms look bigger tonight. He's getting ready, right? I'm like, okay. So maybe they'll tell that story. Or I think Gunther squashes him.
Yep.
Those are the two ways for me. It can't be the same old, same old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean, anything else? We got multiple callers and emails to get to, so I don't want to. And we're at 2 hour mark. So, and you had your 3 hours with Brandon on Saturday. But yeah, anything else you want to sneak in?
No, I just wanted to say, I know I say it over and over, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that with him, and I hope to do it again at some point whenever he needs me. But I'm just thankful to get to talk wrestling. So, Chris, good to talk to you, man, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, Sean, it was really fun hearing you Saturday. You did a great job with Brandon. That was
thanks, man.
a fun show to listen to today. Yep.
Awesome. See you guys.
Take care. Yeah, absolutely. As always, appreciate the kind words. Okay, we got a super chat, and that takes precedence. Let me click on the right one here. Nima PSR says, thank you for the super chat, first of all. Wade, do you like Bron not being defined as a heel or a face? Based on your history, it seems like you would hate it. Also, what about Logan? It seems like they're setting up AJ versus Logan. So there's some talk. I listened to a podcast, so I can't give full credit. I think it was Jason Paul and Jake Barnett over on the .net membership site talking about that maybe Sami Zayn and Logan Paul is planned for WrestleMania. That Sami's going to take a few weeks off. And how do they didn't know how he'd get there, but Logan, I need an opponent. He just, all Logan has to do is just insult Sami, and you got a feud, and you can have that if Sami doesn't end up in a triple threat or he doesn't end up 1-on-1. So we'll see. AJ Logan is possible, but to me I think there have been more signs of AJ Braun. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, they've been leading with AJ Braun. Last night was the first night I remember, or this last night, I guess technically last night, right? It's 12:30 now. Was the first clue I got of AJ Logan, right? I don't think they've dropped any breadcrumbs before tonight.
Yeah.
Are they teasing it? We know that Triple H is online, right? We know he's got a burner. I think they're dropping morsels to see what's going to get people excited.
He's in the chat right now, by the way.
What's up? What's up, Triple H? There's something I think they're teasing. I would much prefer AJ Braun. I think that's the better match. I think Logan Paul's been botchy lately. I think he's gotten some in his head.
Yeah.
I think he's believing his own hype. And so I think the better Mania match would be Braun and AJ, because Braun wants to be the best and he knows what it takes to be the best. Right?
As far as Braun, I think I said it, Nima, a few minutes ago. I think there are exceptions to rules. And I think what following rules does is it makes the exception have impact. And it's, cage match should happen, or Hell in a Cell should happen once a year. Don't pull it out to pop a rating multiple times. Hotshot title changes, I'm against, except in extreme moderation. And then it has impact. So to me, Braun's a perfect character. And I just talked about it for a few minutes, which was he is a well-defined character who does defy the heel face construct, because he doesn't care who's put in front of him. He's going to plow through him. He's a badass. He wants to beat people up. There's nothing you can cheer him, you can boo him. And he's not undercutting. Yes, he's badass enough and popular enough to undercut. I don't want to be a babyface facing Braun right now, because I know I'm probably going to be booked to lose, because they have big plans for him, and rightfully so. And he's going to get his spots in, but he's not actively undercutting a babyface opponent. He just has to be against babyfaces if he faces a babyface who's under him and able to take a pin. And it's like, well, of course they lost to Braun, because it's a mid-carder. Right. Heel-wise, there's no shame at losing to him either. So I'm honestly, I'm fine with where they are if it's part of a plan. And I do think it's different than, Tiffany, as I said, where it just feels like they're lost with their character. Oh, Nima, if you have anything you want to follow up on, hope that answered your questions. Okay, let's go to Dan next. I'm going to tell as I did with Sean, I want to keep this short, with relatively short, one or two quick topics, because I do want to get to the emails and I do want to end the show somewhat soon. I was hoping to be under 2 hours tonight. It really, all the time I feel that way, but it's fun doing the show and we get rolling.
It has been fun. Yeah.
I mean, it's a blast doing these, but there's at some point I want to try to pace things a little quicker if we can. But what a week. There's so many topics. Dan, you are on. What's on your mind?
Well, I joined in late, so I don't know if the topic has already been talked about, which probably already has. But
we brought up
CM Punk's promo.
Yeah.
In the beginning, he really went off on The Rock, and I'm wondering if that was like his legit feeling, because
it's almost everybody's legit feeling. Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Punk's, I bet I haven't asked around. It's not no one. I was going to say, I wonder if he got a standing ovation when he came to the back, but people know it's good for them. You know what I mean? But I bet there's a lot of texts on his phone right now.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know if it was scripted, bullet pointed backstage. Go out and talk about this. We'll cut you off when you say fake belt and Jay comes out, or whoever comes out. Right. So
I don't think
sure.
I don't think Punk went into business for himself. It felt like a test of Dwayne having a thick skin. It felt like that. Yeah, but it's like Dwayne, he might be like, bring it on. I'm Teflon. I'm comfortable in my own skin, as he told us 7 times, which usually people are comfortable in their own skin don't say.
Right.
And I don't know, that might seem like a cheap shot. I mean, the context is important, but okay,
the shots were awesome. Like the arm tapping and the fake belt. I was like, perfect.
It was great. Yeah. The bald stuff didn't work for me. I mean, I think CM Punk should be above that. But I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just like, come on, that's low hanging fruit. Like if MJF did, I'd be critical of him. I got to be on. If Punk's doing it, I'm going to be critical. But that was a great promo. I mean, he's like, you're not here because you love the business. Like, I mean, it's honestly, it was a lot of truth being said. That's Punk's gimmick. Dwayne, if he were to veto it ahead of time or complain afterwards, it would reveal that he feels it rings true. And I think he's smart enough. He's not a dumb guy. I think there's a lot going on with him, but I think he's smart enough to know that'd be a bad play and just take that blow.
I was just curious to know if Pat was giving info, say The Rock's name first versus anybody else, whoever,
Oh yeah, the throwing the names out was kind of interesting, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
But I think he could have just gone off on anyone really if what Pat said, any name.
Well, it's like a rhetorical device. You ask the crowd, but you just pick the answer you want.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
It's good crowd work.
Yes, that's part of the traveling roadshow con. Yeah.
All right, I know it's late, so I'll let you guys go.
Cool. Yeah. Great. Thanks,
right.
Dan. Appreciate it.
Bye.
That was good hearing from you. Yep. All right, let's bring in Danny Tuchito here. Danny, welcome. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
I'm just going to piggyback off of another Dan.
Yeah.
The Punk promo, everybody's focusing on what he said after the first thing he said, which the first words out of his mouth were basically, people think that I don't have a path to the main event of WrestleMania. And nobody remembers that he said that first, apparently. And to me, that was either he's just, he's just saying that because whatever, keep the hope alive. Or, and here's the question, and then I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that had anything to do, or could possibly have anything to do with the Heyman favor? Because that's still lingering out there, and I don't know how it would work, but I just wonder why he said that. And
why? Just clarify pronouns. Who said what? I just want to be sure I get it right.
So Punk said the first words out of his mouth in this promo that we all love tonight.
Yeah.
Said, people out there think that I don't have a path to the main event of WrestleMania anymore.
Yeah.
And he went on his, insults and all that. And I just wonder if that was intentional and nobody remembers it. And it's more to my question, which is, could there possibly be anything involving the Heyman favor here going forward? I mean,
it's a good
Cena, nobody's talked about it, and it's just like it could be. I don't know. Standard Deviation and I in the chat had a little back and forth about maybe there's a third man thing, given the throat gesture started with a number 3, then a number 2, and now. But I'm not going to go into that theory because it's way too early for that. But my question is this basically, is there any chance, do you think, just being a fan, fantasy booking it, is there any way that him saying, people think that I don't have a path to the main event of WrestleMania anymore is a clue that maybe the Heyman favor thing is going to come in soon?
So one way to interpret it is he's talking about all WrestleManias. Not just this year's, and like people are wrong. There's always next year. It could just be simple as that, but it did sound like more than that. I'm with you, Danny. I'm just trying to go. Maybe we would be making more out of it than we should. So we'll start with that. If it's more than that, I don't know what that is. Paul Heyman in the narrative structure of stories doesn't have power to give Punk a title shot.
Agreed.
I don't know what leverage he has. Maybe there's something I'm thinking of, and I'm open to. Yeah. By the way, just Kyle Fassel said I took it to mean all WrestleManias. So, whatever, if someone else said. But yeah, as this is not wrestlers in the chat, I don't see how Heyman could get Punk into the main event at this point. Heyman's
neither do I.
Yeah.
I'm confused as well. I just wonder why he threw that in as the first thing he said, literally in the promo, and nobody remembers it because of all the better things he said after that.
Yeah. I remembered he said it. I just didn't talk about it because I'm like it's in my TV report. I'll read it tonight in the Keller. I mean, but I think we're not talking about it because going into the territory he did aiming at Rock the way he did and what he said about it, I think that was more pertinent. Is it an Easter egg? Is it I don't know if that's
what I meant.
Term. Yeah, and so no, I get other things have overshadowed it. I would say rightfully so, but I think I'm glad you called and I'm glad you brought it up because if all of a sudden tomorrow I'm like, why didn't we bring that up? I'd be mad. So I'm glad you did bring it up. I don't know. I can't conjure up a way Paul Heyman has the pull. He's not aligned with Rock. They're not going to just gift him a spot. I mean, maybe they are going to get, to me, this is the other thing I want to say, and I'll throw it to Chris. It's possible this is one of the things that got screwed up by this story. Because remember, the idea is, yes, Rock's been plotting this with his small inner circle, and he listed the 3 people basically who are in it. Brian Gore's at the head of it during his post-press conference. He's got his inner circle, and then he gifts Levesque access to those conversations is basically what came through. It's great working with Paul. He's so amenable to my requests and actually contributes good ideas that we consider. I mean, wow. I mean, it's not word for word, but that's the vibe Dwayne is giving off with plausible deniability, but that's what I hear. So this story, which was Levesque was privy to, I think at the time that the favor to Punk was introduced, but I don't know what I think there's still more to be learned about when did this exact timing of this play out. Did Jay win the Rumble because Cena was going to win and face Gunther, and the Cody thing was leaked, but in a way that actually wasn't like, a plan in October isn't necessarily the plan in December and January. And one plan from Rock's camp might be leaked. That's not the plan on the Levesque side of things, and vice versa. So I think there's more to be learned. I don't have all the answers in that regard, but I just don't think we should assume that we have all the answers at this point, is what I'm saying. I mean, like, so is Punk cashing in a favor something that they have to punt to next year or to SummerSlam because of what Rock and his team injected? And I don't think it's a disaster. I think some care was taken to not disrupt things. If Cody versus Cena was the plan and everything that happened, that Rock isn't disrupting that, and he's not getting in the way of anything else on this card, good. That's better than last year. And he should get credit for that. He isn't there's not a cascade effect in it. But maybe this, Danny, this is something that would have factored in and now it can't because of Rock revealing to everybody his final plan and now it being executed. Yeah. Chris, your thoughts on that?
Man, there's a lot to chew on with that. The idea of how the favor is going to get Punk in, I'm not there anymore. I don't think it's going to be the triple threat Punk, Cody, Cena that a lot of people were thinking before this heel turn. What I did find an interview where Punk recently was this was like last week, was the first time I heard him talking about not caring about main eventing WrestleMania anymore. Mm-hmm. Right. So now he's beginning to say, well, 10, 15 years ago, yeah, I really did care, obviously. Now, not so much anymore. Well, is that prepping for the fact that plans got changed? And look, he just ain't gonna main event it. And we know Dwayne is not really a respecter of CM Punk. So is this another big brothering moment? Yeah, it could be. I just don't know all the behind the scenes stuff, but it feels like something like that.
Yeah. Danny, anything else?
Just because you brought it up, Wade, and then I'm seriously out here. I wonder about the plans changing thing. Like at the time, we were like, wow, Jey Uso winning the Rumble was kind of an out of nowhere thing and a weird turn of events. Like obviously he's very over and very, it was good for him to win the Rumble in the grand scheme of things. But like at the time, everybody was like, oh, well, this was weird. And so like, maybe that's when the plans changed, maybe.
I think that's fair. Why have Jay lose clean to go through Saturday's main event and then unexpectedly win the Rumble? That's always stuck with me. Haven't gotten an answer. I don't know how many people know the answer. But it wouldn't shock me to find out that Jay was an audible because it was in that time frame after Saturday night's main event, or after it was at least booked, but maybe after the finish, that then we go, okay, this is the plan. And so, now we can't have Cena win the Rumble because we have to tell this longer story arc with Rock. So, would Cena choose Gunther or Cody? Maybe he chooses Gunther. Maybe Punk wins the Chamber and Punk gets the match against Cody. That's a viable scenario that I don't think we can rule out without particularly credible special knowledge. So I'm not ruling that out at this point. That Jay's win, it seemed peculiar because it was an audible post Saturday night's main event. Because otherwise, might do it that way. Yeah.
And also, by Cena not winning the Rumble, it feeds into the story they're actually telling now, which is that Cena is desperate for that 17th championship. And so if he would have won the Rumble, he would have actually gotten a win. And like, as we all know, he hasn't won in forever in a singles match. He hasn't won anything for years in WWE. And so he had to lose that match, lose the Rumble, because then it would make him even more desperate. I'm saying in storyline terms. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Wade, you're muted. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is.
I get one, and then I find myself on the second and third.
That's such a bummer.
I know.
But I think that is the story, right? The desperation. Another piece that I thought about a while ago. So Cena's trying to break Flair's record. Okay. And you now have Flair interjecting himself on social media, which could just be ancillary fame seeking, right? But you have Cena trying to break Flair's record, going against Dusty's kid. So you have the potential for a sort of the spirit of a Dusty Flair rivalry going on, which I think there's something interesting to tell there. Maybe a stretch. But I think there's something interesting in that you could play with Cena's desire to break that record, right? And he's not just going to break the record, but he's going to break the son of Flair's worst. Yeah, that may be too melodramatic, but yeah, it's wrestling. So,
so the chat speculating about Jay and Goodfella 1420 says, I don't think Jay was an audible. He was rewarded for hard work. They do not reward hard work by giving WrestleMania title shots to people who work hard. They do. There's a lot of hard work by a lot of wrestlers who aren't main eventing. Drew McIntyre, CM Punk. We can go on and on. A lot of people worked hard. They're not getting WrestleMania main events. You get a main event because they think it's good for business, and I think it's more about, if anything, that they felt. Let's say it's not an audible. They're just like, well, Jay lost. It's part of our underdog story. Jay's going to be, he already lost to Gunther, and Gunther's going to be arrogant about it and go, what do I have to gain from beating you again? And he's going to be so unsufferably smug about that it's going to be a selling point. And Jay's super popular. He's getting huge crowd responses, and we think we can turn this into something. And it also gives us a match that doesn't have to headline one of the nights if we want to headline with the women. There's all kinds of factors that go into this stuff, and it's all about context. You know, what did that free up Punk to do instead, for instance?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Danny, anything you want to follow up on there?
No. That's it. I'm gonna let you guys go.
Cool.
Wade and the gentleman, have a good night.
Hey, thanks. I'll take it.
Thanks, Danny. You know, he's not calling you gentleman because he doesn't know your name, or he thinks you're a gentleman. He is a playoff of world-class championship wrestling and
yeah
Nitro. Okay, I'm just explaining to the wider audience so they don't think he just forgot your name.
No, I'll take it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Couple emails here, and we'll wrap up. If there's a chat we didn't get to and you want to turn to super chat or just re-chat it, that's fine. We'll take a look. Tony from Reno, Nevada goes, hey, I love the podcast and continued coverage every day. Seems like next week regarding Punk, Rollins, Cena, this feud might be coming to an end. So then what would they have them do now at WrestleMania? People keep talking about a triple threat with Roman, Punk, and Rollins, but I feel triple threat should have a title on the line, or there should be something they would get other than just a win. And so I'm gonna go back to his email, but if I can find it, we got so many emails here. I'm not going to get to all of them. Well, I won't. I'll just do it in order, and because it's not in the subject line. I'll read it. I'll give credit when we get to it. The speculation was that Seth Punk brought up Becky's name, so we could get Punk and AJ Lee against Seth and Becky, and that freshens up the feud. So Tony's going, well, they're giving the match away at MSG next Monday. So maybe that is the blow off to the one-on-one feud, but there's many ways you could then do something where Becky and that would explain why Becky was saved. You know, why she didn't come back soon. I mean, could be many explanations for her. Maybe she broke her toe and we don't know it. I mean, whatever. But
Punk's brought her up before. It's been a sticking point with them before. Yeah.
Yep. So Seth so they'd have to do more, you know, and then, you know, I mean, people want to see AJ Lee. AJ Lee may not want to do what it takes to get in shape to wrestle again. That is a big, you know, Triple H talked about that years ago. He's like, people go, oh, you're going to wrestle again. It's like, I'm running NXT. Right. I remember that's the first time I heard him use the word bandwidth. I don't know why it stuck with me. Because I don't have the bandwidth I don't have the bandwidth to train. Like, that's a full-time job at my age, like to train and get in shape so you don't hurt yourself or your opponent. He's like, I'm running NXT. I don't have spare time. I got kids at home. So, you know, so yeah, AJ Lee my point is AJ Lee may not want to wrestle or might not want to do what it takes to wrestle, you know, but in a mixed tag, maybe she could it's like riding a bike. There's certain things she could do. I don't know. So someone was speculating about that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if they're blowing it off, it doesn't mean that they can't do something with Roman that heats us up again. And Roman is like the number one guy in the industry for years now.
Just gone.
It's like that when people go, "What's a long way to WrestleMania? How they keep things interesting?" Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns. That's my answer. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll come back and it'll be like lightning. It'll be like injecting something into the mix.
Yeah.
A side note on the cage match, did you notice Pat say, locked in a cage where they can't escape each other? And I'm like, brother, that's one of the classic ways of winning the match is escaping the other person. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. I'm mad that I might not get Wordle done tonight because it's almost midnight. I'm going to run out of time.
It's 12:58 where I am.
Yeah, I know. I've got them. Anyway, that is not germane to anything other than when I look at the clock and I'm like, oh, I didn't do it earlier today. I'm like, it's gonna end my streak. Okay. Back to email. Tony Firmino goes, and I know you and the Roundtable crew were skeptical, but I love the Cena heel turn. I thought this was a perfect time for him because he might have felt desperate and feel like he couldn't get it done without Rock's help, which I feel will lead to the eventual face turn of Cena and just admit all of this. Go VIP. No, that's baked in. I just think there's a better way to tell that story than they have so far, and I think it's an uphill battle to tell the story as well as it. I don't know that they can recover enough to tell that story as well as I think where they should be with it by now. I'm trying to construct my point, but I think it's too late. This is the way to put it. I think at the stage we're at, it's too late to tell the story brilliantly. I think there's going to be flaws. And I laid out a scenario earlier. I'm not like fantasy booking. This is the only way it can work. It's illustrative of things that could have been done by now. And if the timing was different, where I think they'd be in a better position. But of course, the story should be Cena's doesn't want to admit it, but he's choosing to try to get some advantage, but they better have something that's tangible and concrete that's going to be an advantage. And I don't know what that is because Cena was living the part-time life and being gifted a qualifying match in the chamber. So let's see. I mean, I'm excited to see what they come up with, and I'll evaluate it then.
It's got to hit though. It's got to hit. Yeah.
Oh, Brian Hamilton, giving him credit. He goes, could Seth and Becky against Punk and AJ Lee be the twist for the next chapter of their story? So I'm just giving credit to him for bringing that up. Okay, William in San Diego. Hey, Wade, I know you guys brought this up during the VIP roundtable, and I even wondered this myself after the PLE. What if Cena had lost the chamber? I'll try to play devil's advocate and maybe answer my own question. I don't think there's anything stopping this angle from playing out pretty much the same way it did. Let's say Punk had won. I could easily picture Cena staying in the ring to shake hands and then raise his arm. Before Cena could leave, Cody or The Rock's music hits. Cody rejects The Rock's offer. Punk and Cena rejoice at Cody telling Rock to go F himself. Cena and Cody embrace. Then Cena gives him the low blow, and Punk is too shocked to even defend himself from a Rock or Travis Scott sneak attack. Then Rock would just make the title match a triple threat and insert Cena into the match. The details would obviously be different had anyone other than Punk also won. But my point is I don't think there's anything that would stop Cena from being there in the ring or getting inserted into the WrestleMania main event. So the answer to what if Cena didn't win, and maybe they can just with a throwaway line satisfy us, with which Rock can go, Cena, I got your soul, therefore I got your back. Good job winning the chamber, because that kept me from having to use my power in a way that I don't like to very often.
Yeah.
Then it's, I think just people at home want to think you're thinking about what we're thinking about, right?
Right.
And then even if you give a sort of lame answer, at least you're thinking about it and you're not just disregarding it out of arrogance or incompetence or negligence.
Well, you don't want to be smarter than the show.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to think they're being negligent or incompetent or disregarding striving to have the fewest plot holes possible. Sean and Brandon on Saturday night, I thought, they were saying, well, a lot of storylines have holes in it and all that. It's like, just because a lot of storylines have holes doesn't mean we start excusing storyline holes.
Right.
Especially when Rock is going, I was thinking about this back at Bad Blood. Well, then you better get it right.
Right.
This wasn't like a like having to recover from an injury or something unexpected. This went back to October. So get it damn right. Run it by people. Don't have plot holes. You don't get an excuse for WrestleMania's main event to have plot holes that everybody's thinking about, or so many people are thinking about right afterwards, just because there's plot holes in other parts of wrestling. And don't excuse, just because something is poorly done doesn't mean American, in the 70s, American-made cars break down all the time. That's why I'm starting to buy foreign cars. Well, right. So American cars should be built so they don't keep the repair shops in business. They should put better parts in them. Maytag did that, and they started selling a lot of washers and dryers back in the day because they put good parts in that they knew wouldn't break down.
Well, story, you're like, and the only way wrestling works is when the story feels like it is not going to break down when we enter into it, right? Yep. It's its own reality. And we're choosing to enter into this artificial reality. And because we know it's fake, it has to be that much more airtight.
Yes.
In order for it to work.
Yep.
Right. That's the only way the illusion works.
If somebody isn't doing magic, they're just doing something that takes a lot of skill, and something goes wrong, you're like, well, that can happen. But if you're doing magic, it has to look perfect.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, a magician can't have
the heel turn, let's say the KO heel turn after Bad Blood with Cody. The people caught him punching him out. That one felt totally non-performative. Even though I liked what happened with the Chamber, the fact that you had Travis Scott there burning sage made it feel like performance, right? Mm-hmm. And so if they can just get away from that element, they can tap into something that I think people are hungry for, right?
But by the way, is Travis Scott Rock's Jimmy Hart?
I think so. But this is also the midlife crisis piece, right? Like,
yes.
The Rock is having this guy be with him to give him instant cred with that generation. But the problem is The Rock isn't aware that this generation doesn't play like that, right? Like, no one cares. No one thinks The Rock is cool because Travis Scott is there. Everyone thinks Travis Scott is cool because Travis Scott is there,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what his deal was. Yeah.
Travis Scott's kind of Rock's 20 years younger than him trophy wife.
Yeah.
His second wife, who's 22 years younger than him. And look at who I'm hanging out with.
He's the midlife crisis Lamborghini. Yeah.
He is totally. Back to William. Maybe this begs a question. If Rock could just gift Cena the Mania title match, why should Cena even participate in the Chamber? I think that scenario would have been their B plan. The Chamber match is already planned and advertised, so they couldn't just cancel it. I think even the final boss would realize that's bad business, and I'm sure Cena and Rock would have preferred avoiding a triple threat if possible. Sorry for a long email, but I thought about this more than anybody probably should. And so here's the thing, and your last line is a key. No one should have to think that hard. You shouldn't have to think at all. It should be covered in coming weeks. And if it isn't, then it's like, well, we don't think our fans think that hard about this stuff, or they need to get over it. Just go along for the ride. And it's like, well, that's what a lot of,
go along for the ride is code for give us your money. We're just going to give you something mediocre.
Exactly. Yes. This is a compelling subject line from Justin from Rhode Island. Providence, Rhode Island, PVD as he calls it, as people in Providence call it. Hey, Wade and guest host. I apologize not knowing for who you are yet.
That's all right.
But it's Monday morning. I haven't watched Raw yet. I don't know who the co-host is. All the fun, awesome stuff that happened on Saturday at the Elimination Chamber. Cargo returning and attacking Naomi. Orton returning and almost punting Owens. Punk losing the Chamber match, but still is a favorite to cash in. Cena, Cena turning on Rhodes and joining The Rock. And that other guy who clearly requires medical marijuana. Who also may or may not have purchased a replica title belt at the merch stand. Wow, what a PLE. To quote a song that was once and only once used by AW Dynamite, I'm so excited and I just can't hide it. I like to get excited for wrestling, but I can't recall the last time I was this excited. It was probably back in the late December 1998 on a Tuesday night on the ride home from Worcester Centrum after witnessing Mankind win the WWE title from The Rock. Or maybe it was in September 1987 right here in downtown Providence, Rhode Island, when Macho Man Randy Savage defeated King Kong Bundy in the finals of the King of the Ring tournament. I don't know. Maybe I was this excited in more recent times, but I can't recall. I know I wasn't this excited when Stupid with 3 O's. He put 4 O's. It's an extra O than even I put in. Stupid stuff like Roman Reigns being fed dog food was a thing. I get it. He was the big dog, so he needed to be fed. a big amount of dog food. That didn't happen. Yeah, it did. Anyway, Raw hasn't even happened yet. Heck, Monday has barely begun. Wade, you're probably still sleeping as I type this into my phone with my thumbs, but I'm so excited to watch tonight's episode of Raw. Maybe I'll write in later the post show about what is yet to come. Cheers, wrestling fans. It's a great time to be alive on the road to WrestleMania. He is a 13-year PWTorch VIP subscriber, and he says, if you're not VIP yet, you got to be. It's the only place to be. I don't know if that's true, but pretend it is and be there.
It's a great place to be.
That works. It is a great place to be. Okay, standard deviation. Says he's in the chat, but he emailed this. Nobody saw it coming. The one constant for millions of childhoods is no longer a constant. Mm-hmm. The cultural connections cultivated over a 20-year mission of respect have suddenly been severed. I couldn't see this. That's right. The most significant heel turn of our times. WWE has altered the course of mainstream culture by officially deciding to no-sell Black History Month following decades of tradition. Yep. Please put the sledgehammer down.
Yeah, I meant to bring that up, and I thank him for bringing that up. So that was some BS, right? But also, is it? Because the recognition of Black History Month has largely been attached to purchasing a shirt that went to some other fund, right? It wasn't directly tied to work that WWE was doing for Black excellence or Black culture, Black history. I think to me, it represents largely what's going on in the broader culture, that institutions who either were doing it to virtue signal realize they don't have to do that anymore, or they're scaling things back as other companies have done because they're afraid of, or not afraid, but it's just not the climate right now to be doing that. I think it's reflective of our own cultural de-evolution at this time. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go back to Travis Scott and tell you what the chat's saying. And we've got a couple more emails and we'll wrap up here. Dan says, I don't think any Travis Scott real fans care about him on wrestling. And let's see. Goodfella 1422 says Travis Scott got all the extra views on the algorithm expanding to music.
That's true.
Kyle Fassel says, I think that's all it is, reaching non-wrestling people. The thing is WWE has a lot of ways to reach non-wrestling people, and Travis Scott is better than Big Boom AJ or whatever nonsense AW is putting out there. But nevertheless, it's still just kind of weird, like Travis Scott without explanation. He's a buddy of mine and he carries the pot for me. I mean, that was Rock's answer essentially. Yeah. He's got the good stuff.
That contact high.
Yeah, it's like, so I mean, but that's not the fact that he's quote good for business is the story. But that doesn't explain why he's hanging out with Rock in the canon of the storyline of wrestling. Why? Just formalize it. Like Rock can be like, this is my best friend. I have the clout. He likes to be on TV, and I think it's good for my image, and it brings in new that's a weird thing. I mean, usually people are hanging with you because it serves a wrestling purpose, right. Not they're good for social media views, right. And culturally it's so the criticism isn't he doesn't do anything for WWE. We get that. That's obvious. So it's not that we're overthinking it. The point is what's the canon explanation for it?
Right.
And in the canon explanation is Rock's going through a midlife crisis as a character, hanging out with this dude who he thinks adds to his cool factor. Or and thus that's worthy of criticism because can't Rock just be Rock, or let's have an explanation for it. And no explanation's needed. It's good for social media views. That's not an explanation that explains him being out there every time Rock comes out.
No, and in some ways, we're probably going to look back on it and say it actually takes away from the moment of John Cena being the one to, in the words of CM Punk, stabbed your childhood in the front, right? Try to imagine that moment playing out without the strange specter of this extra cultural icon just there, right? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
When we look back in 20 years at the retrospective, it's going to be like, who was that standing there? No one's going to say in 20 years, oh yeah, remember when Travis Scott popped Cody? Yep. They're going to say, who was that hit who hit Cody, right?
So I think what upsets fans, and I think rightfully so. Like, well, first, Sadler version 3 says Travis Scott just feels like another Rock excuse to flex celebrity. Makes absolutely no sense for the story. I think what wrestling fans don't like, whether they articulate it and it manifests as a concrete thought, what their gut reaction is why does a celebrity get to play fantasy wrestling manager or fantasy hype man? Right. Because he likes wrestling. That's privilege.
Right.
That doesn't serve me. And I want, as a fan, the decisions to be made of what is on a wrestling show to serve me. Because you guys don't make money and there's no money for cameras and lights and renting. If I'm not giving you my money and I'm not watching your commercials. So don't put somebody on to be fantasy camp wrestler because they're a celebrity. If you're a wrestler, don't bring a celebrity on to help your image if it doesn't serve me in a storyline sense. Right. And I think that offends people. I think they go, because people feel like they own wrestling and WWE happens to be the brand of wrestling that they're supporting. Right. Or AEW is, or an indie group is. WWE is serving wrestling fans who exist regardless of WWE's existence. And that's how I think most fans look at it. I think people go, I like pro wrestling, WWE's my brand of choice. They don't go, I like WWE and I wouldn't like pro wrestling if it weren't for WWE.
Yeah.
So clearly there's casual fans who just come and go, and they, for peak ratings, it's those people who are just into it because of celebrity. So I think that's why it rubs people the wrong way, and I think they're right to feel that way. It's the same way it rubs people the wrong way that Shane McMahon got to show up in his sneakers and his baseball jersey and hide his gut every time it showed by selling a move. But after he took a move, he'd cover his gut. And it's like, well, you're supposed to be selling. You shouldn't be worried about a little flab on your belly. It's no big deal.
Oh my God.
And then he comes out there and he spams everybody's finishers and he no-sells and he throws terrible punches. And people go, and people were, well, I was upset by it. Some people weren't. Todd Martin wasn't upset. But I was upset because he was in that position for nepotism. Right. And by the way, he got great crowd pops, but who wouldn't if they got to break every single rule? They got to take chances with their health because he didn't have to worry about making a living on a house show circuit.
Right.
And he got to no-sell and steal everybody's finishers. Same with the pipe bomb promo. If you get different rules and you get yourself over, maybe you do it better than someone else would, but maybe others would benefit from that privilege too. And Shane benefited from that. Well, now Travis Scott's benefiting and Rock's benefiting from the privilege of Rock having the power to... Rock has a power to say, I want this guy to follow me to the ring, and no one's going to say anything. And Travis Scott gets to play fantasy camp wrestler because he's a celebrity. And that rubs people the wrong way, even if they like Travis Scott, even if they like The Rock.
Yeah. There's something about the willing exchange between, and we talked about this earlier, we want to be manipulated to a certain degree, but that manipulation is, and this is what makes pro wrestling so interesting, is it requires a kind of strange vulnerability on the part of the viewer to say, I'm going to really engage in your life, not just as an actor, but even bigger, right? Cody Rhodes is more than just who shows up on the screen. That's what makes wrestling so interesting. You meet him in the airport, he's going to be Cody Rhodes, unless he's having a shit day, right? And so there's something about that. And when they betray our trust, it makes it really hard then to want to give yourself back over to the product.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think they're not to me running the risk of it yet, but they're perhaps getting closer than I would have expected they would, riding that boom period. Do
you see it more with things outside of The Rock? Does something come to mind? I mean,
primarily with The Rock. But I think
I'm not saying there isn't. I'm curious if you can rattle off a few things beyond that.
All right. So The Rock piece is one. I don't think they're listening enough to the conversations about women and women performers that keep coming up. I think Triple H was dismissive of that in a way that is unhelpful to the product because you believe you know what we want, right? And there's that piece. And that's that you have to have a little bit of hubris and you have to believe you know what people want in order to put out a good product, right? And to a certain extent, that's you with what you've done. People like what you do, so you invest in that. But I just don't see the depth of storytelling, the depth of character that was even there a year ago, right? Yeah. There's a shallowness that I'm afraid is being reintroduced.
I think Paul Levesque's strength is not taking live questions that I think he gets either gets defensive or thrown off. And I think it's something I would be, if I were him, asking for help from, I'd be going, I know my plate's full, but like, hit me with some questions. Let me practice. Like, I mean, it's just, he's telling wrestlers, practice this part of your wrestling, practice this part of your promos. Yeah. It'd be good for him to practice part of his job, which is, so if someone goes, you're not pushing, why aren't there black wrestlers in main event positions or on pay-per-views, or why aren't there women in this? And he can just, I think earnestly and honestly go, I actually thought we were doing a good job on this. I do have to say I'm not online all the time. I don't know if this is a big thing, but I'm surprised by your question. We're proud of this, and this, but I'll think of give me an example, and then I'll rethink it. Maybe there's room for us to improve, but I have to say, like, it's on our mind and we think we're doing a good job. I think people would accept that. Like, oh, his heart's in the right place. He thinks about it, but he's not being defensive. He's just being honest. We think we're doing a good job, but you're saying we're not. I want to learn more, and let me ponder that. Like, that's pretty disarming, and it doesn't have to be phony either. It just doesn't come across as hubris or or being defensive. Yeah. I think Levesque could be good at it, but I think he has to have practice.
I do too. I think if part of this forward movement of WWE being so hot right now is not just creative, but they could do it. He could be the alternative to Vince McMahon, right? He could be the one being open. He could be the one in these opportunities, like you're saying, yeah, we want to do better. Help us. Mm-hmm. That could be really cool. And I think that kind of feedback into this product that we care so much about, even though we know the institution, the organization is rotten, but we're sticking with it, right? There's something about it. That could be new and fresh with a modern sensibility that listens, right? That could be really cool and symbiotic in a way that I think they want, right? They want that fan synthesis. So I'm spitballing here at 1:20 in the morning.
Yeah, All right. Ryan Solario, as far as Travis says, to be fair, Triple H gave Travis Scott that belt.
So he did at a concert. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Glenn B says, you're all overthinking the Travis Scott thing. Dude goes beyond music. It's a massive name in sneakers too. Transcends wrestling and celebrity as much as Logan Paul. Gets some extra eyes. Glenn, I should have read your tweet before responding to it, but I did respond to it. And that is a good reason to have Travis Scott on your show for business. It still doesn't excuse him from not explaining. The presence of Travis Scott should not be he's good. He transcends wrestling. There should be a reason he's on the show that makes sense in canon, and they just can't be bothered because it's Travis Scott. That's what's offending people. But I don't want to repeat myself.
I still go back to it. He laid hands on your champion. You gotta tell us why he was allowed to do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to get to all emails because I'm going to end on this one. But maybe in the flagship tomorrow we'll hit some of the emails I didn't get to. But Julian in London is on this topic. I hated the end of Elimination Chamber. You absolutely nailed it with your description of it as celebrities play acting. It was phony, implausible, and killed all suspension of disbelief. Every other competitor in the chamber would have had better reasons than Cena to take Rock's offer. I think this year's intervention by The Rock is much worse than last year. For all its flaws, last year's appearance at least made sense in canon instead of the incoherent, muddled mess of this year. That The Rock insists on emphasizing at every opportunity that the whole thing is just a fun work makes it even worse. And I'm glad we can end on that note because that is irritating. And it when I say end on the note, we covered it earlier in a way when I said the new work is to act like you're being more frank and open and honest with fans, but it's a false pretense. It's not because you think there's merit in that. It's because you think the fans will give you the extra slack, which frankly he needs because his promos have been a mixed bag. Yeah. And so, yeah, going out and like right afterward. I mean, I don't enjoy I shouldn't say I don't enjoy. I don't find the in-character post shows all that compelling. But I'm okay with them existing. It's just to me, they're not going to put their best work on a post-show press conference, but I kind of like the idea of like media asking questions of, I don't like real media asking questions and wrestlers giving work to answer. So it's complex. And I pitched back in the TNA paper, or like early years of TNA. I said they should do a post-show press conference where the booker comes out and explains what they did, and answers questions, and wrestlers come out and talk. I was like, pull the curtain back, but I said that because TNA needed to survive. Right. And I said, you know what? They're aimed at a small, hardcore audience. And so if they did that, people would show up and every week love that window into the booking. But TNA was a small company, desperate for survival. But I don't think WWE should be doing that. And I don't think Rock should be doing it right afterwards. So anyway, Chris, anything else you want to sneak in before I go respond to that?
Yeah, I think what's at the core of it is a level of embarrassment that WWE wants to say, yeah, we know it's quote fake, right?
Yeah.
They're embracing that word without embracing that word, which is a betrayal of the core principle. Yeah. This is exhibition, and it's storytelling, and it's character. These are real bruises. When you go out and you talk about how fun and phony it is, man, you're discounting what you just did, and that's the worst kind of self-hatred, right? Yeah.
All right, my producer who's waiting around to post-produce the show and get it posted in like 4 places, just texted. So we'll wrap up there. Everybody go VIP. I've screwed this up. I want to take the comment off the screen, and then I will put the graphic up on the screen, and we'll Chris, thank you. This was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate your contributions tonight. If you're interested in hearing our post pay-per-view roundtable from Saturday, and we got the one coming up this weekend for AEW, you can get a 7-day free trial through Patreon and Spotify. Just search PWTorch, and that will give you a 7-day free trial if you want that through either Patreon or Spotify. Search PWTorch VIP. And that'll unlock all our VIP podcasts and also give you a commercial-free version of the show where the commercial breaks just get skipped past. You can also get a full VIP membership, which we talked about earlier, which allows you to customize your RSS feed. It's still compatible with Apple Podcasts, and it unlocks 35-plus years of archives. Great benefits all listed at pwtorch.com/govip. Check it out if you haven't yet. Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.